Welcome to the Late Game Podcast, a podcast about all things board gaming, from rolling dice to painting minis and everything in between. I'm your host, Tyler, and with me is Kenneth.
What up?
And Russ.
Hello.
And this week, we've brought back, by popular demand, guest host Alex.
How's it going, everybody?
It's good to have you here, man.
I'm stoked to be back. I love doing this.
So, I'm happy to hear that your schedule's loosened up a bit so you can come out to more game nights and join us for stuff like these recordings.
For what, one more week?
Yeah. No, come on.
Two.
I'm gone for Christmas, and then I'm, basically,
Yeah,
2
you got
weeks.
2 more weeks, then you're gone again.
Well, it was fun while it lasted.
It will have been fun while it lasted.
Yeah.
So, like you just said, it's a crazy time of year being Christmas, yet we've still managed to publish episodes on time, despite the vacations and being the holiday season.
Yeah, by the skin of our teeth at times.
Right? We've also managed to keep game nights alive despite that whirlwind of life during the holidays, which is very nice.
That ain't going anywhere, especially for us.
Nah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you made a nice investment.
I did.
What was it that you invested in?
The ultimate gaming table.
And it's
it is
pretty ultimate.
Sweet. I'm just waiting for the play surface, so it feels a little odd to be playing on a table, but
It's nude.
The hardtop is noisy.
It is an unclothed table.
so much space on it though. I'm so excited.
What size playing surface did you go with?
4x6.
Nice.
So speaking of the new tabletop, what did we throw down on it?
Well, we started with Ecos, the First Continent. And
That's designed by John D. Clare and published by AEG, I believe.
yeah, it's definitely AEG, and I believe you that it was designed by John.
You better.
But so it's kind of a cool, it's got like a similar to like a bingo mechanic, and there's a little bit of a deck building element and a little bit of a tableau building element and some tile placement. And it sounds like there's a lot to it, but it's really not a terribly complicated game. You get your little cards that have different powers that trigger different abilities or allow you to place tiles on an ever-growing continent, because the full name is Ecos, the First Continent. And so someone draws tiles from the bag. Each tile will have an element on it. The elements, your cards, you have like an element requirement on them. And as the elements are drawn, you cover up the little requirements. Once you get them all covered up, you holler out Ecos, a lot like you would holler out bingo. And then you do the thing on the card, which might be giving you points, might be manipulating the map, might be giving you more of the element resources to get other things. I think that by the time that we were getting close to the end, we were all comboing off pretty good, like, multi-card things. We'd go, all right, this guy does this, and then that's going to set off this other card, and that's going to set off this other card. In theory, it's a simultaneous play type of game, so the timing should be short, but once you get started to comboing off, especially if only one person is doing that, it can kind of get a little bit slow, because when the person's drawing the tiles, that part is simultaneous, so you set off a combo, you can't just keep drawing tiles and leave that one person behind or trying to figure out what just happened.
Yeah. The board will change in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, the whole situation can change, and they could be missing elements while they're trying to figure out what else they're doing.
Yeah.
Overall, I liked it. I would like to try it with more people. There's a drafting variant. We played with the starter decks, and I would like to try drafting the opening decks, which there's rules for that in the book, and maybe just go for the 60-point threshold where we played a full game to 80. I might try 60 next time, but I liked it. I know that Russ it was almost like an arms race for me and him. We both it caught both our eyes, and I just pulled the trigger faster than he did.
Yeah. I like it though. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It had a Carcassonne feel to me, in the sense of you're not but the tile placement where you have, say, mountains or trees, you got to build that up so you score more on your cards.
Right. Yeah, it's not
So
just...
it kind of felt like that, where I'm trying to set things up so I can trigger multiple scores when I use one of these specific cards, because that's where a lot of our points came from, where they were 15 to 20 points as opposed to 2 or 3.
Yeah, you're not just looking at the tile you placed, but you're looking at everything around it, and not just the tile, but you're adding animals onto them, mountains onto them, and trees onto them. So you're looking at different things when you lay out that tile, and then you're scoring for stuff around it, whether it's more animals or like the shark that I got. I moved him across a bunch of tiles, ate a bunch of other animals, and then scored a ton of points off of eating the other animals.
Yeah, so it was kind of tile placement with engine builder added to it, which I kind of liked.
Yeah, it's definitely unique. I think that it would be I think a bigger group would kind of be funner, but at the same time could possibly have more downtime.
Yeah.
But it could get kind of rowdy because the turns can be really, really swingy, and that can be exciting with the right group of people. You know? It's definitely not a super heavy game. I don't see it ever being like the centerpiece of a game night, because that would feel, I don't know, that just wouldn't feel satisfying to me. But as a game to start the night, a game to finish the night, or if it's like a big day thing, you know, throw it in between some heavier games without like totally going like way super simple. You know, it's in that like light medium range. It's cool. I like it.
The components are very well done. Those
they're
trees
really
and the
nice.
mountains, they're really well done. And then the tiles that, you know, you liked quite a bit, being that the ocean tiles or water tiles were undersized in comparison to the height. The dimensions were slightly thinner.
The actual like hex tiles that you're placing,
right?
The land ones are like 2 millimeter or whatever, and the water ones are like 1 millimeter. So as the tiles are laying flat, there actually is a recess where there's water at, which was a really cool touch to me.
So the thing that I wanted to point out after talking up the components is that the cards themselves kind of curled up like half pipes pretty quick. And that's probably just, you know, demographically going to be different for us than somebody, you know, in a more humid climate. But that was one thing that was kind of weird. They were very thin, and
but by the end of the game, a lot of them kind of flattened out a bit too.
Yeah, it's like, really a nitpicky thing, but aside from that, it was really well done.
It kind of helped that they curled up because we didn't have a playmat, so we were just playing on that naked table, and it was really hard to pick up those cards.
Made it easier.
Russ refused to do anything about it.
Yeah,
I tried.
The gameplay for me, it wasn't quite as impressive as I'd hoped. There was just not much that provided that wow factor for me. And the Mega Bingo mechanic was really clever and unique, but that alone just wasn't enough to sell me on the game.
Yeah, I think that like your starting deck also, maybe it was one of those things where whatever strategy is there was unintuitive to you, or like the way that you saw it going wasn't quite how it should go. I think that with an understanding of the game, I think a draft would be a lot better that way too.
Sure. It wasn't a bad game at all. It was just kind of forgettable altogether. Like the downtime on the ecos phases were a little too long and congested for me, and I don't know. I don't know how you could really change things to prevent that, but
See, I don't think the downtime was that bad. I think the downtime is bad in that game because of the type of game it is. So it feels like Quacks where everyone's doing stuff, but then it stops
everyone's kind of chugging along, and then all of a sudden it says dead stop, so that Russ can combo 4 cards, and you got to wait for him to resolve all 4 of them, you know. And I mean, and it goes around, you know, and the worst part of it is when you know, we're all chugging along, and Tyler's a good 6 draws away from anything happening, and then there's Russ combos off 3 cards, and then Patrick combos off 2 or 3 cards, and I combo off 2 or 3 cards in like turns in a row, and you can have multiple people happening, like doing their thing at the same time. So it could even be like one thing is drawn, Russ combos off, Alex combos off, the next one is drawn, I combo off. The next one is drawn. Alex combos off. And if you're not one of those people in that group, it can, like, there can be a lot of just sort of twiddling your thumbs while everyone else is playing a game that you're waiting to play again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I just think
fair
that
point.
the type of game makes it seem more like if you were actually to stop a clock. I feel like other games we play, downtime is longer. But the downtime in that is pretty brutal because of the play.
Yeah,
So,
I
like,
mean,
clockwise, it might not
you're-
be that bad, but it's like,
yeah, the thing
oh,
is-
I'm into it, and then it's just like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
everybody do their
you're
stuff.
either clipping along or you're at
Yeah.
a dead stop.
Well,
and it is such a hard, like, boom, hit the wall. You just stop and wait.
Even when I had stuff to do, when I had my own ecos phase to go through, when I was waiting for stuff, it's just the dead stop, you're not thinking about anything. You already have thought about everything as soon as you place that last cube, at least for me. And I don't know, in other games, when there is downtime, usually I'm thinking about something. So there's mental effort going on in between that time and the next. So it might seem shorter overall.
See, because I was thinking about the continent in between that, because I had so much that triggered off the continent. So I didn't.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
was
struggle
paying-
with that like you
The way
did.
that the world unfolded and the way that the tiles were placed, all of the cards that I had in play were damn near useless because of the way that there was, water was only along the edges and everybody continued to link them together, so I couldn't close one out or do anything to actually score the points that were really valuable on my thing. So
Yeah, I think me and you were working directly against each other. I was working to get a good body of water so that I could turn loose that shark and get a whole bunch of points, which worked out.
yeah.
But you were trying to, like, close it off and segregate it, and I was like, oh no, I need to lay
Right.
some tiles. Someone's gonna separate this thing.
Yeah. It's okay. It's, for me, not something I'm reaching for again immediately. But again, I wouldn't, not play it. I just don't really want to very soon.
Yeah, I feel you.
So next up, we played one of my favorite palette cleansers in this case, and that's Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done, designed by Seth Jaffe and published by Tasty Minstrel Games. This game is just super well done. That's kind of all I feel like I have left to say about it.
Yeah, we've talked quite a bit about it, and it's just such a solid game, and it's just super fun. I lost, like, real good loss. Kind of brought Patrick down with me a little bit because, I mean, it's a game where there's not much player interaction, but I made it a point to kind of interact with him. He went onto a space, killed the guy, and then he was done. I went, well, I'm going to come behind you, go onto that space, build a thing before you can, and just sort of steal what you worked for. And
Right.
I think I did that twice, and he was like, dude, why are you doing this to me? And I was like, I don't know, because your pieces are near mine.
Yeah.
I was going to do it to Russ, and then Russ went a totally different direction. I couldn't.
I'm doing
But-
it because proximity.
But it was like, it was none of us, for all of us, it wasn't our first play. And I remember that in our first play, I pulled that sort of move on someone, and it's, I kind of wanted to point out, like, hey, this isn't just solitaire. We're all playing this together, and you actually have to pay attention to other people. You got to look up off your
Yeah.
board. You got to look at more than just your color. So
It's one of those games that hits the wow factor for me, because when I look at it, I don't know what I like about it. As far as, like, well, and it's kind of fallen into this category I find myself liking, where you do 4 actions and that's it.
Yeah.
Right? You do one of 4 actions.
Right. Do a
But there's
thing
more
and move
to
on.
it. So, like with that one, like, it seems like there's a ton going on the map. Not really. I mean, there is, but not like this triggers this or this triggers this. It's you do that thing then. But I think it's the rondelle for that game. Like, I don't know what it is. When I'm playing it, I just enjoy it, and it doesn't, like, I'm not worried about winning. I just like the fact of trying to figure out what is the most optimal use of my actions.
Yeah.
Which is kind of where I'm at with Wingspan and Tapestry. It's like just the enjoyment of trying to capitalize on the best I can do with
Right.
this situation. Those are kind of hitting a niche for me lately.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed them as well.
And I know you like to try every single possible strategy to your own detriment, and like go, I'm going to try this time. Hey, that didn't work. Or like you get halfway through the game and you go, oh wait, I'm going to do this now. And I'm not even going to stick with my original strategy.
Yeah, see, that's always bad. You got to stick with it through the game. But
yeah, I was kind of all over the place with this game. That was one thing that I honestly feel like so you've got the different knight factions that have some slightly different abilities, and you at the start of the game you deal out 2, you pick one and hand the other one back and throw it in the box. I picked the one that has the extra knight, so I had like an extra guy on the board straight from the start. And I was immediately like trying to capitalize on both of my guys, and I immediately was like going, spread way too thin. Like I didn't really like give myself a clear direction or directive, and at a certain point I was like, I don't think I'm doing very good. I'm just going to cause chaos. So
yeah. Well, it benefited me. I was able to quietly. I thought I was going to kind of be stuck over in the corner for a minute, but I was able to branch out enough and place enough buildings to help, throw things into my favor. But yeah, I've not had a bad play of that. I haven't won every game, but I just like with Rust, there's so many elements of it for me that hits the wow factor, that it's driven me to want to play more rondels because of that.
There's 2 things I realized in the game that I really enjoyed this time is, one, the different factions drastically change your play. Like, mine was night today because I played the one before where you only have so many cubes, like 6, 1 for each spot on the rondel, and every action's +2 or +1. So, first off, the math was a little off to start because I was like, I get +1 all the time. But this one, I got to upgrade my 3 spots. So that was really nice because I already had half the rondel was, upgraded, which got me, like, my strategy now, I think, is going to be to upgrade those, because what I could do is when you have those actions where you have, like, leftover, if you have a flip to the benefit, you can always get the influence.
Right, or the movement.
So you just get like, I only need this much movement, but I have this many pegs, I'll get this in influence. And then that's why I upgraded my churches, because then I was getting any, like, leftover actions were always turning into influence. I think that was helpful, because my score was better this time.
Yeah, it's a satisfying game. That's for sure.
Alex?
No, I haven't yet.
That'd be up your alley too, I think.
Speaking of rondels, I got to play Freshwater Fly this week.
How'd you like that?
I loved it. It's cool. Have any of you guys gotten to play it yet? Yeah, that's a cool game.
Own it.
Own it. Haven't played it. Yeah.
I like it. I like it because it's very puzzly and in like how you take the actions and that kind of stuff. But there's enough luck in the dice and the hit deck that you can't solve the game. So it was really fun. I played with my roommate and he trounced me. I just couldn't catch a fish to save my life, which is kind of like real life. So but that's a really fun game.
Is that one for sale at retail yet?
I don't know. That's a really good question.
I haven't seen it.
If it's not yet, I'm sure it will be soon, because my Kickstarter came, I want to say, like 2 months ago.
Yeah,
so, it's got to be getting close to hitting retail.
I need that so that cabin trips, I have my fly fishing and my hiking with parks. So it's like...
There you go. You don't even have to leave the cabin now.
That's right.
Total camping themed games. Yeah, we're going to scratch the itch. We're going fishing and hiking today.
Campy creatures.
You're just in your pajamas.
We're going to have to find a hunting game. I don't know of one.
There are definitely some.
The closest thing I could think of is, I believe was there an element of that in Western Legends?
Yeah, we could do RPG. I could just...
There you go. Yeah,
take
just a hunting party RPG.
Yeah,
on a hunting
that sounds
trip.
awesome.
Yeah,
bring the beer. So, finally, we played a pretty epic game of Cthulhu Death May Die. Epic for the game, not for us. And then we started over and played a more epic game for ourselves.
Yeah, we got crushed on what, like turn 3?
I
One
think
of us
so.
died. Was it?
Yeah.
Was it? Did I die or did you die, Tyler?
I think
caused you to die.
Yeah, because remember
Okay,
it
that's
was
what
that
it was.
bad guy
Yeah.
that when he attacks one person, everybody takes damage,
Yep,
and
that's-
everybody in the room next door.
The
That's what it
Cthulian
was.
or whatever.
Yeah, I was like hanging on by the skin of my teeth, and I was like, all right, cool. On my next turn, I need to heal, and then Tyler triggered the guy, and he killed me on Tyler's turn, and that cost us the game. So we did a reset, and then
Yeah.
and
The
we were
game
able
made
to
sure
pull it
that
out.
we knew that it hated us that first time
That's
we
the
played.
second game I've played that somebody, and that was the Mythos card. It wasn't my son being super aggro in the game, but it's taught me in those 2 plays, one where Micah went and decided to fight too many monsters and got crushed.
Yeah,
And then this one, I've totally learned that there is a lot of luck. It's a combat dice driven, but the strategy is pretty heavy. If you make a mistake, it's going to escalate right away.
that rule where if anyone dies before the old one is on the board, that is a no joke, serious threat.
Well, and I think what I like how they added that rule to make it so that there is strategy before it comes out. You can't just be like, oh, we'll just kill all the monsters. If I die, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
Because you have to get stronger.
Yep.
So it's not like you can just wander around and not do stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to have tasks so you increase your insanity so you get stronger. So, I mean, my only disappointment was I was sad you didn't like it as much as Ken and I do.
No, I don't think that I.
And that's not to say you didn't like it. It's
I
just that Ken and I think are
Yeah,
felt
on
about it.
I'm really happy with it right now.
No, I liked it. I liked it quite a bit, actually. I felt it was really similar to Mansions of Madness. I was kind of just trying to, determine which one I liked more
I was
at the moment.
interested if you were going to say that before we played because
Yeah, it's very similar, but without the app-driven GM, and there's no in-game puzzles. And maybe that's the thing I was waiting for, this puzzle. But to give the game some credit, it's the game itself provides puzzles within the way the episodes kind of unfold and
I'm
play out.
wondering if
and
there's going to be some stuff down the line. 'cause
that's what I
there's
was
some,
going to
like,
say. Maybe
bigger
in further episodes, there will be those
you know.
specific puzzles similar to Mansions. But
Yeah.
overall, I'm really interested in playing it again.
And I mean, you and I, Russ and I have only played the 2 episodes now, right?
Yeah, and
Between
I
us,
wanna-
we've played with like 4 of the great old ones, but
Yeah, and they're all quite a bit different.
yeah,
Like,
they add different things, and the episodes are distinctly different. I mean, there's obviously similarities because it's a game, and you can only have so many mechanics without it just being a pain in the ass. But they are distinctly different. They felt different as an episode, and each great old one has felt different too, which is really cool. Like that could have been the Achilles heel of the game if there wasn't enough variety.
Yeah,
in
if
all
each
those
one of the
boxes.
great old ones was just, a copy and paste, but with different levels of difficulty or, health or whatever, that would have been probably pretty bland, I imagine.
Yeah, and more or less tentacles on the mini.
I mean, there's just so much I enjoy about it. I love the simplistic setup. I know some people have said the tiles. I just don't know if they made them bigger. Like last night, we had a pretty small map, but it was a decent table hog.
Yeah, I feel like the complaints about the map tiles being too small, they're not unfounded, but I don't have a problem with it. I'll take the game, the tiles being able to go into the game box a little easier than like the giant tiles that come with Zombicide. I'll take having more pieces to be more modular with the maps and have more variety that way over larger pieces that can only fit together so many different ways,
Sure.
I mean, when you got map tiles in a game and different map setups, you're going to be going into the same room a lot, and
Yeah.
when you've got the smaller tiles that can be manipulated in more different ways and set up with more variety, it's not going to always just feel like that same room.
I really
which is good.
It provides for me with what I like about co-op games is that if you feel in control, because in a good hard co-op game, you're going to feel in control at times. Like Pandemic, it's like, oh, we've got this, but then one turn of the card could like just jack everything up, and all of a sudden you're on the verge of losing, and you didn't even see how that was possible.
Oh yeah.
Death May Die does the same thing.
Death May Die does that in like multiple different ways. I mean, there's the Mythos cards, there's the dice rolling, there was a couple of times that I was like, oh, cool, I got like a cool piece of gear, and then my insanity made me get rid of it, and I was like, well, I got to level up, but I'm losing all my toys, you know, and there's a lot of different
so
ways.
Cool.
Yeah,
I mean, they suck. Like mine last night, every time I hit it, the monsters kept one step towards me, which we used to our advantage, right?
When we could.
And then I played the Voodoo Doctor. He was really nice. I liked his ability because my teammates, if they're in the room with me or next to me, depending on how far you go, you didn't have to take that insanity. So if it was going to be punishment for you guys to take it, you didn't take it.
Well, and right there at the end of the game, it probably would have pushed things in the game's direction, but I didn't have to deal with it because I was one space away from you. And, you know, in that last series of turns, it didn't double trigger my insanity card and just totally just cream us again right there at the very end.
I mean, I've faced a lot of different ways to eliminate your character in that game. Like last night I had, for some reason, I am terrible at discovering things. I have not got one good discovery in 4 plays. Like, it's pretty bad. So I have this evil spirit with me that I lose a sanity every turn. It was a ticking time clock. Like, not to mention, and I missed it a lot. I might have cheated, but every time I hit a sanity, the monsters come once toward me. So it's like, oh, it's the end of my turn. And I go insane, and all the monsters move one space toward me. Sorry if you're next to me, guys, because that just happened.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the one that we lost right away, didn't even seem. You were like, oh, I didn't rest. That's fine. I'll do it next time.
Yeah, no, that wasn't.
And then
there wasn't the next
the
time.
Mythos and moves the guy. Just so many things. I love how simple.
I love how epic that game can feel. It's got those real cinematic epic moments, which is. To me, that's how it makes up for being a somewhat light game. You know, I mean, it's not a real brain burner. You got to be thinking. You can't just be like on autopilot. But it's not like, you know, a hard Euro where you have to think about everything and pay like super close attention to everyone's turn, and plan way ahead. And where it makes up for that level of engagement, it gives it back to you in just pure like cinematic, big flashy moments of like, oh my God, you did it! Oh my God, I'm screwed, you know. And that makes up for a lot of the engagement that could be lost in how light the game is mechanically.
If you like the others, you'll like this one. It's a co-op version of the others, a little cleaned up, different, but same idea. Push your luck. See how strong you can get before you die.
I haven't played the others, but I was going to kind of associate it to the similarities in Mansions as well. It's got similar feels and things that you know, the tiles, again, I think people complained about the size of those too, but the minis are a hell of a lot better than they are in Mansions.
Simon, I think, changed their plastic. I think I might have mentioned this. The details on these and the small pieces compared to other... not necessarily older games, but earlier versions for Command games, they like spears and stuff. With none of that on these, they just seem like a little bit different.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, before we move on to the next topic, I wanted to mention something about Kickstarter and ask you guys if you have anything coming up that should be delivered soon, or anything that you've backed recently that you're excited about.
I kind of went on a backing tangent the other day.
The reason
someone kept messaging games.
Sorry,
this is true.
I just didn't have the money, and I knew I needed someone to back those because I wanted to play them.
That's awesome. That's a great idea.
Well, there was 2 of them you sent me.
I know. I wanted to back both of them.
So I ended up back in my second game.
Oh, yeah?
I did, last night. And maybe it was because I was up at 3 a.m. eating a breakfast burrito and needed something to do.
Yeah, don't be looking on Kickstarter at that
It was
time
not
of
a
day.
great idea, but it also might be a great idea.
What'd you back?
I backed Red Outpost. That game that's done by I think Seth Hyatt is his name. He's been associated with Mayday, and that's another Utah company. So, but the game itself looks pretty unique. It's like a top secret Soviet space mission set out to colonize a planet in a remote galaxy. But it's the settlers themselves are communists. And so everybody's playing the same workers and manipulating this track for each one of them. And it sounds really interesting and unique.
Wait, so are you, is it co-op?
No.
Okay, so I like this idea because I'm imagining somewhat of what you run into in Coldwater Crown, where you have the same spaces, but you're also using the same pieces. They're just interchangeable. But it's worker placement that you share the same workers, which means that that could be so fun because you might not be able to take the action that you need to because somebody moved that worker and put it there. Oh, yeah,
the
I like that.
Kickstarter says you must expertly manage resources and carefully choose the right worker for the right job as to not upset the settlers. Keeping the morale is the utmost importance if you want to become the most prolific leader. So
That sounds like the morale around the table's not going to be great if it plays like I'm imagining it.
It sounds awesome, and the minis look cool, or the meeples, I should say. The cutouts look really cool, and the components just look great. The artwork, the board itself looks like Communist Space Mars or Scythe. So the artwork is really, really well done, and the map looks really, really cool.
Yeah, I want to say that I saw like a thing advertising it on Facebook or something that said it's like, this is Scythe in space, and I was like, cool. Like, I'd be down to play that. I'm not. Personally, I'm not quite interested enough to back it myself, but I am absolutely down to get it on the table once you get it.
End?
I don't know.
Did it already end?
22 days as of this recording. So the thing about the Scythe reference, I think it's more just a visual look because there's no minis and you're sharing workers and it doesn't look quite the same. Like the player boards don't feel the same.
It seems like such a cool idea. Are there any other games that do that? Like Coldwater Crown, maybe, but not really.
I don't know. I like it too. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm just
sure.
imagining like this really cutthroat Euro that's just like, oh, I need that action. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I feel like there's got to be something, but
yeah, it doesn't seem like out of left field idea mechanic. So it's like, I wonder if it's.
I hope it's
I
well
love the
done.
idea though.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. Finally committed to another game, and so it begins. The floodgates open slowly but surely. Kickstarter's happening.
8-bit attack finalized. Oh
Yeah,
no, we got
was-
the backer kit.
there was the pledge manager on that, and
Yeah.
that one's supposed to
Thanks
ship like.
on that one. You too. Both of you.
He's saying it so unhappily, but he's got these awesome games on the way.
Yeah, go cry about it.
Well, I was, 8-bit attack was like that. Oh, it's $25. It's good. I knew they had all those expansions.
I think you backed that on the show.
I did.
Yeah,
Well, then I was like, oh, look at backer kit. And Ken, are you getting everything? I'm trying to decide. He's like, well, if it's a really good game, you're going to be really bummed out. So I bought everything.
yeah. He was like, you going all in? I was like, yeah, of course. I can't decide. Well, if you play mine and it's all really good, you're going to be kicking yourself. I mean, the flip side of that is obviously like, if it's really bad, you could have been laughing at me, but who knows?
I trust Peterson.
Yeah, I don't see it being
Plus
bad.
the art, like,
Yeah, it's fun.
I know my boys will like it. So
I've got like, so Valhalla recently shipped or recently was delivered. I'm hoping
that was delivered. Why didn't we play that last night?
it was out in my car.
You just chose not to say.
I told you I had 2 bags full of games out in
You
my
didn't
car.
say I've got new ones.
We played the newest game that I owned. We unwrapped it at your house. It was I waited. I showed up at your house late because Ecos was being delivered. Like,
could have fit
we
that
played
one
newness. We probably could have.
I love these married moments between you two.
Yeah, it's good. It's fine. But yeah, so I've also got a Machina Arcana should be coming in the next month
Really?
or so.
Man, now all these
And
ones
then,
that I just passed on regretfully and was like,
More complaints aimed at Kenneth.
no,
Yeah.
no. So if those come in and they're going to be
Feel the
great,
pain.
they're going to be that, I want it. Why didn't I back like Ken has with Crusaders?
Yeah, and like a recent update on the Root Underworld expansion. I want to say people are starting to get shipping notices on the base game now, where I got like everything that won't be coming until like end of January. It sounds like.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm kind of bummed that that's going to take a few minutes to get here.
It sucks, but I appreciate them laying it out the way that they did. They were like, the base expansion was the first thing that we did, and those are ready, and we can start shipping those out. So rather than making the people who pledged for that wait, we're going to send those out. And yeah, those guys who got more stuff, unfortunately, it takes longer to make, and it's going to take a little bit longer. But they were upfront. They explained why, the guys who invested more are waiting longer, unlike some company I know.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it, but
Yeah,
I'm excited for it to come.
Yeah, I also have Age of Civilization, which is like a pocket-sized civ building game. Should be showing up any day now.
The Terraforming Mars expansion just showed up
The
too.
Terraforming Mars expansion showed up. That looks really nice. I want to play that with Russ.
Yeah, definitely. That's the one that Russ says he's actually interested in.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I'm maybe.
Yeah.
I mean that one has politics and stuff in it. It might be fun.
It's a glowing review.
Yeah, other than that, like everything else is kind of in that. There's a couple of pledge managers open that for games, and then there's other stuff that it's like it's going to be a few months out before I'll see anything or expect any real serious updates. And I'm currently sitting on a pledge for Dawn of Madness, but I'm thinking I might pull it. I just don't quite see what the game is. It feels like it's very much a story with really cool miniatures and really, really cool art, but I don't quite. I'm just looking at I've watched a little bit of videos, looking at the Kickstarter page. I have a hard time seeing what the game is. Like either you are able to tell the story or you're not, and I don't know. I'm thinking I might end up pulling the pledge. I don't necessarily need another story game with Death May Die just coming and Machina Arcana coming soon. I feel like both of those kind of fill that niche, even though it would be 2 years away, but it's not like there's any shortage of games coming out.
Well,
True.
As we've learned, some of the stores around here get those too. So
So if it ends up being awesome, we probably will have some sort of access.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if someone ends up getting it. Probably end up being me kicking my own ass for pulling my pledge if I do.
I got the two that Alex told me.
Which are?
Honey Buzz and Ducks and Toe.
The birds and the bees.
And then on the
Wonderful.
origin of species. That was a no-brainer for me.
And all of the other animals.
the Honey Buzz one looked really fun, like a cool little
Yeah.
worker placement. I
I've
definitely
heard a lot
wanted
of good
to.
things about it, and then you kind of nudged me over the edge.
Yeah.
I was in a spending mood that morning.
I'm so glad you are, because I spent way too much on Black Friday type of stuff and the used board game sale that happened the other day that I just didn't have any cash to back that, and I really wanted to.
I have Root on the way too. That it's such a weird bag for me because I don't know.
It's
I don't
weird
know why
because
I
you
did.
regularly talk about selling it. Like
I know.
it's very common for you to talk about, maybe I'll sell Root. The price is up there. I could probably sell it. Other guys have it. I mean,
I know, and I backed
And you're,
it knowing that. I'm like, well, if I do sell it, they'll want this, and I was undecided. I technically got that game for free, so
You did.
it kind of is why it's there. I don't know. Not like I dislike it. I don't know why. I got that bitterness toward those damn otters.
I mean, just about everybody else in the playgroup does have the game, so if you...
yeah.
Sounds like a pretty specific dislike, though.
Yeah,
But you don't know
honestly,
why?
the biggest. It is a really fun game, but outside of our group, I'm really like don't want to touch the waters of trying to teach that to people.
It's a very difficult one to teach.
So
new
especially
people,
to
for
non-gamers,
Yeah.
you know, or people that are just getting into the hobby. It's like they want to play it, and it's like, we can work our way there.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a few friends from work over the other night, and we played Death May Die, and they've all played games. You know, they're not like total. You know, they're not coming straight from Monopoly. You know, one of my buddies has Zombicide, and one of the other guys has played Betrayal and stuff like that. You know, but they're not super into the hobby by any stretch, and they were like, "Wow, this was really cool. This was fun, and you've got a ton of games." And I was like, "Yeah, the next time, instead of us battling the great old ones, let's all be them and we'll play Cthulhu Wars." And they're like, "Yeah, that sounds great." And I was like, "Sweet." So it's like, go Cthulhu Wars, maybe eventually get over toward Root, because I feel like Cthulhu Wars is definitely a much easier step in that direction than trying to teach Root to a non-gamer.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Every time I think of Cthulhu Wars, I think of the Gods War I want to play, but I don't have more than 4 players.
Did I tell you that I
Yes.
saw someone on
And I don't
Facebook?
know if that's good or bad news.
Well, hopefully you'll be in a spending mood again.
Yeah. Because that would definitely hit my table more if I had similar expansions to you. Because I want to play it, but we don't always have 4, and sometimes that 4 doesn't, I don't want to say match, but maybe they're not into that kind of game.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'll be looking at that Kickstarter and probably restraining myself begrudgingly, because I have yet to play the Gods War, but I know I'm very familiar with the heritage, and and I am a huge fan, obviously, of Cthulhu Wars. So
I mean, they are similar enough that with the type of investment that game takes, you probably don't need both.
yeah, no,
I mean, there are games that have less of a price tag that I'm like, oh yeah, both, that'd be it. But like, you're invested pretty heavily in Cthulhu Wars.
yeah, that ain't going anywhere. That's
That seems fair.
There's no version of like the Gods War replacing that.
Right.
But yeah, I want to play it, and I'll definitely be looking at like I said, I'll be looking at the Kickstarter and checking it out and ogling the bits and absolutely just peer pressuring the shit out of you, going, "Come on, Russ, get all the things. It's gonna be fun. You're gonna like it." you know, when you come over to my house and you see all those Cthulhu Wars factions, you could have that for the Gods War.
Good thing is Peterson always does like 30 days, so I'll have time to stew on it.
Yeah.
Well, what about you, Alex? Anything that you've received or backed recently that you're excited about?
Just the Terraforming Mars. Like I said, I haven't backed much lately because I've been spending so much money on Black Friday deals. And
Do you have everything Terraforming Mars?
I have everything Terraforming Mars, including the folded space insert.
Such a waste.
And really, I love the game. I love the game. Did you watch the video that Zach posted of the dice version?
No.
So in the video, he's like selling the game, and one of the things he says is, "And the art on these cards is based on the base game." And I was just like, "Oh God, that's not a selling point." But it does look
on
cool.
The app.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that video while we were playing games, so I was only like half paying attention to it, and I definitely wasn't listening that well. But I was watching it, and I was like, "Oh, those dice look cool. That's kind of cool." And the cards look like they have spaces for the dice, and they have the same shitty graphic design and random art. Oh man, I'm not going to be able to get Tyler and Russ into this.
Yeah, the
this
guy
ain't going to change anyone's mind.
The designer, whoever that was showing off the game, was like, "Yeah, and the art's based off of the base game." And I'm like, "God, that is like." Have you not read any forums?
Well, I mean, there are
this
people
game?
who like it. Like, they're few and far between. But there are people who are like, I kind of like how it's just like random whatever,
if
know?
there's a dice game for Terraforming Mars, which sounds cool, I would not grab it to buy it until I actually saw the components, because a dice game with components quality of that would scare me.
Yeah. I mean, they were prototype dice. They didn't look that great. I mean, the potential of it looks
Are they
great.
kickstarting it?
They didn't say it.
I mean,
it's
it's
very
gonna do
clearly
gangbusters. Like, I'm sure I'll play it at some point.
Yeah, it's very clearly like early prototype stages. Like the
they-
game board that they had was literally like 2 pieces of paper that you set on the table next
So
to each
no,
other.
that's right in line.
Sounds
Pretty-
Final
pretty close.
Component quality.
Pretty
No, that's production, right?
Yeah.
They are hoping that it'll be released next year, so I'm inclined to say that they won't kickstart it. But I guess that could mean that they're hoping that they'll kickstart it next year. I don't know.
Yeah.
With the fact that they kickstarted the most recent expansion rather than going straight to retail, when they do not need to do that. I mean, is Terraforming Mars still sitting at number 3 on the Board Game Geek like all-time games
Definitely
list?
in the top
Somewhere
10
in there.
for sure.
They're doing fine. That game sells, and it's not like they're losing money on components.
Yeah.
So they don't need to go to Kickstarter.
They're
but
making
but they recently
well on
did.
the game
so,
unless they're buying components from somewhere that the rest of the industry isn't.
yeah. So if they want to, I guess they could kickstart it, and it'll obviously succeed because of the name alone, you know. But I hope they go direct to retail with it.
It'll sell. It'll be one of those that sells right away wherever it's at.
Yeah, it'll be like a Stegmaier game.
I'm pretty excited about 2 of the purchases that I made though at this Black Friday world. One of them had no deal. I just bought it straight for retail. Me and Ken played Brass Birmingham last weekend,
Love it.
and I was in love with the game. So I was like, man, I kind of want to own that and have it in my collection. And then Ken was like, "Oh, what about Lancashire,
Yeah, we kinda
the
talked it
other
out,
one?"
and he got the other version.
And
Nice.
two factors brought it in is the gameplay seems different enough, and Brass Birmingham wasn't available on Amazon. So
What's the newer?
The newer one is
Lancashire is based off of the original with quality of life improvements, and Birmingham is the new shiny.
Like 2.0 or whatever.
Yeah, so basically what I can gather is there's the way the markets work in both of the games are different, and the in Lancashire it's more beneficial to cooperate with your opponents, whereas in Birmingham it's not as necessary. So the way Lancashire differs is you have markets that you also have to purchase. And so it kind of sounds like one person purchases the markets and the other person purchases the goods, and you work together to develop both of those.
I've
Did you
almost
bring it
picked 'em
down
up.
to the valley with you?
It is in the back of my car right now.
We should, when we're done recording, we should play it.
I'm down to play,
When we go back
for
to
sure.
my house, we should
I've-
play it, and then we can tell you all the differences.
Yeah. So, but the cool thing though is everywhere, because I read a whole bunch of stuff. I had a really slow shift at work, and so I was able to be on my phone like every 10 minutes for 10 minutes at a time, and I read a ton. And the cool thing though is even though the games are different, they say if you know one, you can learn the other one in 5 minutes because the rules are similar enough. It's just more how you score points that's a little bit different. So that's pretty cool. And the other one I got it's called Mississippi Queen. It's,
I've heard. Great
Yeah.
things
Yeah,
about
I've seen
that.
that.
so I've heard great things about it, but then you look on the internet and there's like no videos about it. There's not very much write up. It's kind of one of the quintessential racing games. I think the original one came out in either very early 2000s or in like the 97 or something like that. And then Amazon had their like post Black Friday half off deal, and it had the revised version, which came out, I think last year or 2 years ago. It's a really simple racing game that the rules are pretty simple, but the strategy seems like it can be pretty complex, and it has a beginner and an advanced version. That one seems pretty cool. I got it for like $20, and so I'm excited to play that as a racing game. I'm excited to play it with Jared because I'm sure he'll love that that theme, and so. But yeah, it's a game that it seems really cool. The components are really nice, and it's pretty straightforward. You kind of your boat does the thing, and and you go along with it. And so the way the rules work, it seems pretty thematic of piloting a boat down a river and that kind of stuff. So those are two that I'm really excited about playing in the near future.
That's awesome. So with me moving up and actually back in my second game with Red Outpost after earlier on I backed Sovereign Skies, I feel like I might be evolving as a gamer. So why don't we talk about all of the evolving gamers in us? So the podcast, it's helped me solidify my opinions in board gaming a lot more than I had before. And I found that earlier on I was drawn into gaming by the theme-heavy games, dungeon crawlers and dice chuckers and stuff like that. And now I'm finding that my gaming cravings are evolving into these thinky, mathy, crunchy Euros, which is really, really surprising to me because I never thought that stuff looked fun at all early on. I thought it looked more like Homework, the game. And now I'm just enamored by anything thinky and mathy, and it's really caught me off guard.
I don't know. There's some Homework the games out there.
There definitely are some.
How to
Homework
Terraform
games.
Mars.
Hey. Hey.
Anything
Get out of here.
Anything Kevin brings to the table.
Yeah, Kevin.
That is true.
Kevin specifically likes, hey, this theme is microbiology. And I did advanced classes on that in college, so it's going to be really fun for me. And it's a bunch of words you guys can't pronounce, but it's basically Lords of Waterdeep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, dude, you're just making up those words. That's not what that does. That's not even a thing. Get out of here.
That's awesome. Well, what would you guys say is one thing that's been noticeable as far as the evolution in your gaming since our Dice Masters days? What about you, Russ?
Probably the simplest one. And so I remember, this is superficial stuff, but like going into game stores and seeing like, oh my gosh, that game is $50. People
Right?
spend that much money on games, or like an $89 TI3. I was like, I can't imagine that. And now $50 is a good deal on most of the games I buy, and I've approached well over $100 on games. So I've just kind of evolved. It's good I did it at a slower pace because I think my wife would have gone crazy. She was already like, I remember when I thought I would never get the Chaos in the Old World.
Right.
It was a kind of a, but I'll probably never afford to buy it. Can't find it. It's used.
It was
Be hard.
definitely a grail game for
Yeah.
you for a minute there.
And then somebody put it on for $50 locally, and I was like, I gotta do it. You know, and that was, I remember because that was kind of a big purchase. Had to talk my wife into it. Like, sold it to her. And now, like, if I
wanna
spend that
say-
much on a game, like, I don't even let her know typically. It just goes better that way.
Yeah, I want to say that when you got it, it was going for like in the $80 range, and now it's, I mean, what, $100 for the base, and then another $500-$600 for the expansion.
Everywhere I've seen, it's $150 for the base.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's going up.
Since I got Russ's extra one, I've kind of not paid so close of attention.
Seems
but,
fair.
Yeah.
There was a guy at the used board game sales selling it for $200 with the expansion, right?
I think so.
I think that's
pretty
what it
normal
was.
price.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah, in fact, that's actually kind of a good
And then
price.
you get a guy that's selling it in the box, in its own box, all laminated for $40, I think. And I only had $30 on me. He's like, "No, that's good." I was like,
what?
No, I am paying you your full asking price. I mean, I could have been like, sure, but I was like, nah, dude. I think you know what you have because you've played it a lot, but
I don't think you might understand the market value.
so I mean, just other than like game strategy stuff, the collection, just spending a few dollars on a gaming table.
Yeah, a few, just a couple of bucks.
Just a couple of coins.
You know, two 5x5 K-Lax.
Oh, I thought you were telling us the price of the table, $2K.
No.
Just walked
I mean, he
into that
was.
place.
It's just,
That
double,
is-
you know, it's-
Yeah.
yeah.
So kind of that whole thing, but like the game table, it's like, oh, that'd be cool to have. I went the inexpensive route and had a previous game table. I bought it used, just a used kitchen table for $20, and you know, paid a good chunk for foam, so it'd be the nice like poker table foam, and played on that for like 2.5 years. And the amount of time, the amount of hours I spent on that table, like I have no problem spending what I did on this table, because it gets used more than any furniture in my house. And you know, I have our group that gets together and other groups, like, and I kind of knew this when I got my table. I was hoping anyway that, because I love the hobby, I wanted to play. Not that we have to play at my house, but it was kind of that Field of Dreams, like if you build it, they will come.
Yeah,
more the sense of like, hey, I have a table. We don't have to be at my house, but let's get together and play.
Yeah, your house is definitely kind of a hub of the group where, I mean, we've all got games, we've all got tables, but your house is like, I think part of it is the nature of the fact that you seem to have a very consistent schedule. So you can just say, hey, on Friday night, come on over, you know, and that works. And it also kind of works that where you work from home, you can be like, hey, I'm going to be done doing my stuff around like 2. If anyone's ready to go that early, come on over and we'll start playing games. And it's really hard for me to try and compete with your game night when you start at 2 and I'm not home until 4, you know? And like, not that I try for that, you know, like it works, but you having the really nice table makes sense kind of for all of us, because it's the place that I think we play together the most, for sure. You know, as individuals, maybe we play more elsewhere, but as a group, we definitely all play at your house more than anyone else's.
I mean, our group has really evolved quite nicely when you back from Dice Masters days, right?
Yeah.
We had a group, we did a podcast, and like that, we can't get on that soapbox, but it was a fun game. And then we evolved, right? And it was, for me, Dice Masters came out of nowhere. Like, this whole hobby for me was unknown. So, being able to use my brain after not being in school and all that kind of stuff, I could use all my time to come up with combos and how to use 8 cards. So the interlaying like combinations of Dice Masters kind of evolved into games. And then I loved Eric Lang's conceptual designs and basics of, well, if you die, as bad as it will, maybe there's a benefit that could stem from it. So it always seemed like there was layers to choices in games. And then it kind of evolved from plastic and to now I like wood too, meeples and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really evolved in a positive way, maybe not on the wallet so much, but our group, like game nights, we are a pretty eccentric group of people that there's no way that we would have connected had it not been for games.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Dice Masters specifically, which is interesting that we were all drawn to that same thing. It says
Right.
something about
Some
the
of us
game
are a
and the
little
community.
older, some of us are younger, some of us have kids, some of us are religious, some of us are not. Like, just like this whole array. But
It
like
works.
our group is so close,
Yeah.
like all the time.
Well, and it's evolved into hanging out outside of gaming too.
Yeah.
Like we've done things
We
that aren't
broached
just
that
gaming.
barrier. Like, wait, something outside of games? You
Yeah.
sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Like with spontaneous concerts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, bring that up later.
You got it.
Like when we're done recording, because there's a concert next week, and I figure maybe you want to go.
Oh, right on.
Static X.
Yeah.
So, what about you, Kenneth? What has been one noticeable evolution for you?
So for me, the evolution would definitely have to, like, it has to go back before Dice Masters, because before Dice Masters, I played Magic when I was like in middle school. I always liked board games. I always enjoyed, the Hasbro standards of, Monopoly, Clue, Battleship, The Game of Life, Sorry,
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I remember I was in Seattle with my dad for something, and it was like in my early 20s, and I saw this game called Zombies with exclamation points, and I was like, "What's this?" I kind of looked at it, and I was like, "It's a game where you're just battling zombies? That sounds great!" So I bought it, and me and my buddies, we played the hell out of that game. We played it to death. And I got like tons of expansions, and so I kind of the first modern board game that I got into. I got into the vast array and wide world of buying expansions and upgrading and getting more stuff. And maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I feel like it. I was more inclined to. I started off on a path closer to where I'm at now. The biggest thing that I've noticed is I went from being like, when I played Magic the Gathering, black was always my favorite color. Death, zombies, the vampires and demons and stuff. And then into like zombie games. I also like I think the second big like modern-ish board game that I got is this game called Diplomacy of the Dead that's like Risk with zombies. I haven't played it in years, and thinking back on it, there's a really good possibility we're playing it wrong, but I remember it being difficult. It was like you're playing against each other, but if you ignore the zombie threat, you are all going to die. And
Interesting.
like I've got Zombie Dice was an early one that I got, and then
Yeah.
I started getting into really like the me and my wife. When we were first together, we bonded over gaming. That was the thing. She was into video games, and she played Magic, and she likes Dungeons and Dragons, and I was into all of that as well. And so we kind of started going to game stores and like picking up more Magic stuff. And then we see like Marvel Legendary, and we like the Marvel movies. So we were like, hey, what's this? We kind of talk about it, pick it up, and then sort of did the same thing with Dice Masters. Started loving Dice Masters. Then I'm going into game stores all the time, and while I'm between matches or waiting for it to start, I'm walking around the game store going, ooh, that looks neat. Ooh, that looks neat. Ooh, that looks neat. And then, start buying them. And the biggest thing with me, like the overall, if I were to sum up my evolution as a gamer, I've gone from a guy who wants to play zombie games to very much an omni gamer. Like, I don't feel like there's any... there's definitely themes that I'm not interested in, but I wouldn't ever count out a game based on theme.
Yeah.
There's no category of games that, like, I don't have at least some curiosity about. And when I don't like a game, it's usually based on that individual game. I know a few of the guys in the group have told me that they have a hard time predicting what I will and will not like. And at times, even mid-game, have a hard time deciding if I'm enjoying it, because I can get kind of intense into it, But I still love the big Ameritrashy, rolling dice, lots of minis, and I also have learned that I love a deep, thinky Euro. I am down with playing That's Pretty Clever for 10 minutes with my 12-year-old stepson and my wife. I'm also down with playing Twilight Imperium for 12 hours with all of you guys, and everything in between. And
So funny. If you would have told me 12 hours or 8 hours for a game,
yeah.
like I remember thinking, oh, that's
What's
crazy.
right?
That's
What's
crazy.
funny is the first
and now
time...
if a game's less than an hour, I'm like, did we even
So
play anything?
Yeah, was that really a game?
Like,
Yeah. The first time that I the Twilight Imperium caught my eye, which because the box is just huge. It was the biggest box in the game store at the time. I was like, what is it? Like, you got lions? What's going on here? Why is he wearing a hat? Like, or a hood or whatever it is. These were like a cowl, you know? I'm like going, what is this? Like, I couldn't even conceptualize it.
Yeah.
And through gaming, I've gotten more into sci-fi. So that's part of it. I was never big into sci-fi. So I'm looking at it going, what is going on with this cover? You know, why are they in space? What is Twilight Imperium? I don't understand what's going on here. And it's huge. And then someone was like, yeah, that game takes like 8 to 10 hours to play. And that was honestly like the first selling point to me. I was like, really? I'm down. Let's do it. Like 8 to 10? Let's go for it. Because prior to that, before I got more into board games, I would play Dungeons and Dragons with my friends, and we'd put in, 10, 12, 14-hour sessions, play an entire game
much work for
of D&D. And
I'm thinking of how hard that'd be as a DM. Ugh.
well, my buddy who was a DM was like
Probably
encyclopedic knowledge
Yeah.
of it. He essentially he had everything in his head except the stat blocks. And so he'd go like, all right, we're going to go to this area. And then we'll put some goblins in there. What are the stat blocks for goblins? Okay, And like hobgoblins and bugbears usually hang out with goblins. So we'll put that with them as like kind of the mini bosses. And it was just, he was so into it that it wasn't a problem for him to make stuff up on the fly. And,
Someday. Hope you're
and
better.
I never had problems with that. And with zombies, even me and my friends, so there's the rules as written in like this. I think I have the first or second edition. I've heard that they've made some changes in the third or fourth. That's the most recent one that came out. But the rules as written, there's like 2 ways to win. Either you're on the helipad with no other zombies, because each tile is 9 squares. A lot of them have buildings or obstacles or whatever, so you don't use them, but the helipad is one that you use all 9 squares. You have to be in the center square with no zombies on it it's either end or start of your turn. I almost want to say it's the start of your turn. And then you can win that way. The other way is as you kill zombies, you keep them in like a little pool, and there's cards where you can like steal half of someone's zombie pool, or they have to get rid of them or whatever. And when you die, you lose half of your zombie pool, but you can win by getting up to 25 zombies. And after like 2 plays, me and my friends were like, never doing that again. Just get rid of it. You can kill all the zombies you want. You just put them back in the box, and they'll come out later, and they'll keep killing. And then as we got expansions, there was specific bits from the different expansions that we would put in that literally only served to make the game last longer. And so we would, start playing and having drinks and essentially like, a small house party around a board game for 6 or 8 of us, and we would play for 7, 8, 10 hours while drinking and just doing our thing. And it was cheaper than a night out at the bar, more fun, better company. Like it was. I now, as like married and responsible and not really interested in that whole world, gaming is the thing that I go, yeah, why would I do anything else? Like, I've got my old friends, they still kind of go like, dude, you like never really go out. And I go, why would I love my home. I like playing I like playing board games. I like playing video games too. And it's more engaging to me than hanging out with drunk people that I don't know.
Yeah, I can appreciate that a lot.
So like the idea of Twilight Imperium, when I heard that it was an 8-hour game, I was like, dude, I was immediately curious based on that. And then I learned more about it. And then we played 3 right when 4 came out, and then I had to buy 4.
Well, we did get 3 for $23.
Yeah, and I'm glad you did, because I then bought TI4 and I love it. It's great.
Yeah. That game was, I think it was another barrier breakage for me into the hobby for sure.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
awesome. Well, like I was saying, I'm more into the more thinking crunchy things, but I still like the theme heavy dungeon crawlers and dice chuckers, but I'm a lot more critical about ones that I want to play multiple times now. And games like Mansions of Madness or Death May Die or Claustrophobia, those are still really appealing to me, but there's elements that they have that consist of that wow factor. So I'm glad that I've been able to branch out as much as I have. Like Kenneth and I have both mentioned a couple times before, I've never been one to say that originally the worker placement at all looked interesting. I just thought that just looked boring as hell. And now it's one of my favorite types of game, I'm really pleasantly surprised. But what about you, Alex?
Hold on 1 second. Worker placement specifically.
Yeah.
Before I had ever played a worker placement game, there was a Kickstarter. There was the 2 Kickstarters going. There was Dinosaur Island and Dinogenics both. Dinosaur Island looked hideous to me, and Dinogenics looked like the straight up worker placement game, which it is. You know, it's worker placement, and you're building a dinosaur park.
Yeah.
And they're not reinventing the wheel. It's great, but I looked at it and I was like, it's just a worker placement game. I've never played those. That looks boring. That's dumb. I chose not to get it, and now I love that game. Like they did a Kickstarter for the expansion. I was like, everything, all the new stuff, give it all to me. This game is great, you know. And like I've bought a whole bunch of other worker placement games, but like I specifically based on like totally wrong assumptions and an attitude that I've clearly evolved out of, I missed out on kickstarting a game that I now love.
Yeah.
You know?
Have you guys played Lords of Waterdeep? How many of you guys have played Lords of Waterdeep?
I've played it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's like, if you go into a game shop and you go, what is the like entry level worker placement? And they almost always say Lords of Waterdeep. And I just really didn't like that game.
Nah, man, they should always go Champions of Midgard.
Yeah.
Champions of Midgard.
Well,
to me,
have any of you guys
It
played
is to
Agricola?
it is worker placement to what Dominion is to deck building, I think. They're
Uh,
both
yeah,
kind
that's
of
a decent-
bland.
Yeah. Yeah.
Similarity.
But Champions is my go-to worker placement because it's
Me too.
It adds dice, it adds some other stuff than just
Yeah.
here and do that.
Have any of you guys played Agricola?
I've not.
Not
It does
yet.
not sound fun to me.
See, that's where
So
I'm like, oh,
I
wanna
bought
do
that.
this.
I bought that at the used board game sale a couple weeks ago, and then
Awesome.
Scott had 2 of the expansions with these pre-painted little minis in it, and I was like, F it, I gotta buy them all. So I bought a ton of expansions on Thanksgiving Day as I was sitting there by myself. And so now I have the 5-6 player expansion with all the little pre-painted minis.
Yes.
And, that is a nerdy-ass worker placement board game, but I think that, in my mind, when I think worker placement, I think Agricola. Because
Isn't it
you build a
Pretty
farm.
cruel though. Like you might have to sacrifice things. Or am I thinking of a different game?
The plays that I've
Like
done,
people
I don't.
starve and
People do starve. Yeah, you have to. You start out, I think, with 2 workers, and you have to build from there, and you have to feed your workers and your animals and all this stuff, and so it's like truly a farming simulator in like the cruelest sense, that you have to manage your food income as well as progress your farm. But when I think worker placement, like that's the one to me that the theme matches the mechanics really well, and B, it's pretty easy to grasp right away. Like, oh, I put this guy on here and that grows me a field of corn, and then the corn feeds my guy, and you can kind of build your little engines with your worker placement to go from there. But yeah, you guys are talking about these worker placements, and Lords of Waterdeep is always the one that comes up and as a beginner's or entry level, and I'm like, it's just really not. It doesn't tickle my fancy at all.
I'm honestly to a point where, like, if someone was like, "What's a good entry worker placement?" I'd be like, "Well, what are you into? What's your theme? What do you want?" Do you like? I've yet to play a worker placement game that felt really complicated in execution. It's just kind of, what do you put on top of it? Like Abomination is not a simple game, but if someone's into that theme, if that's the thing that's going to get them to the table, and with Abomination specifically, you'd probably want someone who's a little more gamery with you as kind of your,
if they're
your
really
Sherpa
drawn
up
to
that
that,
mountain.
you probably
But
figure
theme-
out why
the
they're
theme
so
holds
drawn
their
to
hand
it
pretty
first,
good,
and then
but
be like,
yeah.
okay, then you're normal. But
Yeah,
But I mean, like, there's that, if you want to be Vikings fighting, there's Champions. If you want to be Vikings that are almost more like farming, go with A Feast for Odin, which would be that would be a hell of a place to start for worker placement. Sure. But I mean, like, you want to build the dino park, go with Dinogenics. Like, there's so many worker placements out there, and there's so many that are good that it's kind of
definitely
to that thing of, and same thing with like a deck building game. Pick a theme that you like. Do you love Marvel? Go with Legendary. Do you like more fantasy stuff? Try out Hero Realms.
I will say that one thing that I've noticed with the evolution of me as a gamer is my inability to understand complexity at times. Like, oh, this is a simple game. This will be easy to teach new players. And then it's not.
Yeah.
Because
for
you
sure.
kind of forget, no matter, like, some of our games that are complex, like TI, people would think is complex. It's pretty simple in its actions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, yeah, it's easy. You just do this. And then I've had experiences where I've taught games that I thought were pretty easy, and they're just not. I think Seven Wonders is one that people are like, oh, that's a good basic drafting game. It is, but it isn't. Like, there's a lot of iconography. There's a lot to trying to understand how it builds. The actions of drafting are easy, but the whole game is pretty...
Seven Wonders to me is another one of those that's just... I don't like Seven Wonders. And part of that's because every time I've played it with people that are experienced, and I don't understand what card builds into the next one well enough.
Seven Wonders is ones that plays better when everybody knows the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's why as an entry, it's not that great. It's for me, in that style of game, luckily Carnival of Monsters came out, because I think that's a very good basic drafting game. The tap, the lands and stuff kind of teaches things a little bit different.
Well, and it's not... Seven Wonders is definitely about knowing what's coming next. Where Carnival of Monsters...
Well, it's a civilization builder, and if you don't know what you're doing... Like,
exactly. If you don't know the path you're progressing along, it's really hard to grasp how to make that path optimized. Whereas something like Carnival of Monsters, or even like Sushi Go, it doesn't matter what cards you're handed. It's pretty easy to tell what the next step should be, or what your next most optimized path is, because you don't have to know 3 rounds in advance what's going on.
So I've come to the realization, what I really like to teach new players, no matter what games are, is the core of the actions. So like Wingspan, even Tapestry. What did we play last night? Crusaders. All of those, like, as much as everything is going on your turn, you do one of these things.
Mm-hmm.
They'll evolve. They'll get better, but it's like, don't think about it like just do one of these. Like, Wingspan is really good for new players. It takes them a game or two, but it's that idea of like, oh, it's just one action. Okay.
Yeah, any of those games where it's like you do one action, or maybe you do 2 actions. I feel like that's a great way to start, and ideally, especially if you're playing with like really new characters, with really new players.
They might be
they're
characters.
really new to really new. You can be a character and a player. You can be a player character. If you're playing with someone who's new, it's really nice if you have like a player aid that just sort of like, these are the actions.
Mm-hmm.
These are what you choose from, and like maybe a brief summary on it. Like you. I'm picturing the left side of the board, or of the player mats for Cthulhu Death May Die, where it runs through the turn structure. It tells you do 3 of the following things, and it's got 5 or 6 options, or it's 4 standard options, and then there's 2 that are scenario or episode specific. And then like the next step is this, the next step is this, and then it's the end of your turn. And it's got that little player aid there. So as people are kind of going, okay, so what do I do now? You can point to it and you do one of these things, and then you're good to go. And having those kind of player aids, like that, any kind of player aid, obviously it's an aid, so it's going to help. But with those choose 1, choose 2 actions, those are like invaluable, and they almost make it idiot proof. They can all but idiot proof the game.
See,
which
and that's
is
where
so
I've
good.
evolved. I used to think I liked complex games because I like quote unquote complex games, very heavy games. But I used to think that meant some of the ones, not to throw Kevin under the bus, but some of the ones that Kevin backs that are convoluted and have many, many layers to rules and all that kind of stuff, which are great games.
Like Root.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
Root is a
they're
good
great
example of that.
games, but there's just something about simplistic that has lots of layers.
Yeah, what I'm thinking of there is definitely Court of the Dead. Like, I feel like there's 3 decent games in Court of the Dead, and you play all of them every single turn, and
I really like that game, but that's not one to teach a new player because there's this and this and this and this, and it's almost too much. Like, I enjoy it. I might own it at some point, but it's definitely not going to be like, oh, hey, that, like,
that absolutely felt like they needed to trim the fat on that game to me, where, like, comparing that to something like Twilight Imperium, where Twilight Imperium takes way, way longer, and you've got your 8 stages of every turn. They feel different, and they feel more meaningful, and they don't feel like a whole separate game. It's not your drafting, and then your worker placement, and then your dice rolling. Like, this is a little bit different. They're all different phases. You do a different thing, but it feels way more cohesive than switching gears into a totally different game.
Yeah, that's why I like Carcassonne for new people, because it's very easy to say, you place this tile, you match all the sides, and then you put your little dude on it or not, and that's it. And the actual mechanics of playing the game is incredibly simple. It's the strategy of how you optimize your points that's where it gets really, really complex. But the actual playing of the game is very simple for almost anyone to do.
Yeah. So like, Wingspan has taught me quite a bit because I'm almost to that century mark.
We almost got to the end of the episode. Well, actually, I guess it was more like halfway through.
Well, it's this. I used to think that I can't imagine playing a game that many times with everything that I have on my shelf. And one, would it be boring at that point? And Wingspan is definitely not. Like, if I didn't keep stats, I wouldn't even think I've played it that much. So I've learned, and Scythe 2, I've learned I can't judge a game on one play.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which I still kind of do. Like, it's hard to come back. But I'm, for the most part, don't come with judgment on a game until after 5 to 10 plays. Because 3 or 4 plays into Root, I was still love everything about it. 7, 10 plays into it, still like it. But, like, stuff starts to show. Not necessarily that anything about the game has changed. It's my love infatuation with it, if that makes sense.
I wonder if, because with the new expansions that are coming, there's like reworked rule sets and starting boards, and so I wonder if that's going to have anything to play with it. Your opinion on the game, just because it's been more balanced, it's been more streamlined, and
I don't know
kind of stuff. And
I don't want to make it sound like I don't like that game. I do like that game quite a bit. That is also, on that game, I learned that I love playing with our group all the time, but if you only play one game with one group all the time, like, your perception is going to be skewed. How you play that game is going to be skewed.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Because you play based on how others play. And when we took that and I played it at Game Grid, and I think I played somewhere else, it was like, wait, you guys aren't doing what you're supposed to do with that faction.
Yeah, I know that my first time really playing with a group, everyone seemed blindsided because I was just sort of quietly doing my thing as the Woodland Alliance, and then, like, 2 turns in a row, I did, like, my big move and, like, blew up 2 clearings, and everyone went, whoa, where did that come from? And clearly, like, that's not what had been happening in games prior to that, you know? I was minding my own business. I was just kind of doing my thing. I was just getting by and setting up some big plays. And I guess whoever had been playing it before with those guys was, as soon as they could, they were blowing up clearing. And then they were rebuilding their resources and rebuilding up to that. And maybe they'd get, one at the halfway point in the game and then one toward the end. Where me, I waited till it was like, I think that blowing up a couple of, if I can do it 2 turns in a row, I'll be right there. I'll be able to win. And that's what I did. It was like blow up a clearing, and then everyone kind of went, whoa, he waited a really long time. He's got everything he needs to do that again. We're in trouble. I don't know if we can do anything about this, and I was like, yeah, like, how did you not see that's what I was doing? I'm sitting here stockpiling resources. It felt to me like it was obvious, but it was clearly that they hadn't seen that played that way to that point.
Well, especially those kind of games, heavy asymmetrical. If you're playing with the same people the whole time, you kind of set up your meta, oh, this is how this game plays, as opposed to kind of realistically how it plays. And that's why I've used to be a lot more critical and be like, oh, this game's not balanced because I do not have the amount of plays that this game has. And I trust, I'm not going to say every company, but most of the companies that I come to that, it's like, okay, I trust Ladder. I think it's good. I just need to figure it out. It's definitely a me problem, not a game problem. There are companies, there are games that I do not have that belief in, but...
Well, how do you feel about a game that comes out and everyone says, oh, it's not balanced? And they go, dude, it's balanced. I assure you it's balanced. It's fine. And then a month later they come out with errata.
They didn't say it was balanced.
They said that it was fine. They did.
They said it was fine, but then they were also taking all the...
Which game
but
was
they
this?
also...
Tapestry.
But they also took the data to make sure that... Right.
Yeah. I mean, they did it diligently, but they did kind of wave off the initial, swath of complaints of this faction isn't balanced.
When you
this
say
isn't
they,
right.
Who do you mean?
Stonemaier.
Stonemaier himself was like, there's probably going to be problems with it. The fans are nuts.
Yeah, the fans are insane. But the fans were being loud, and Stegmaier was kind of like, don't worry about it. The game's fine. And then, a month later, it's, actually, you guys might have been right.
I think balance in games is such an interesting thing, and talking about evolution of a gamer, evolution of your game style in one game over multiple plays is especially games that have asymmetry to them. Some factions are the strategy is very clear. This is what you do. You build up all your guys, you blow up this thing.
And then we as gamers are like, I want to try something else, even though the rule books are pretty clear. I'm terrible at this. Peterson will hey, play it like this. And I'm always like, I'm going to try something else because I think I have an idea.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't work.
But, something like Cthulhu Wars, there's some factions in there that it's pretty clear, go out, smash heads. That's how you win. And then other factions is kind of a deeper strategy or it takes more effort to figure out the winning strategy. So the first time you play it, the one that's very clear, go out, smash heads, gain victory points, it seems unbalanced because that one's easier to figure out, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's unbalanced because the other one is just as strong. It just takes more effort to figure it out.
See, I've come kind of 180 on balance in games. I used to think I wanted balance, and I would always complain, oh, it's unbalanced. I've evolved in the last probably 6 months that I don't think I want balance.
I'm not too far off of that.
Because, and here's my reasonings, there's 2 games that stick out that people love that create this more balanced when it comes to that, and that's Forbidden Stars and Heroes of Lancianair.
Mm-hmm.
I would strongly dislike those games because when it comes down to combat and whatnot, because they focus so much on the balance, like Heroes of Lancianair, you both have the same cards, you get them, nothing happens. Really, all those combat games, it's a standstill. So I'm not necessarily talking Euro, make sure it's balanced, move Cthulhu Wars, the Gods War,
when you
Chaos
have,
in the Old
when
World.
you have perfectly balanced direct conflict, that can get boring. I mean, at a certain point, you're extrapolating on chess. That's a
Yeah.
perfectly balanced
Right.
direct conflict game, and there are people who get super into it, and you can play it forever and ever and ever. I mean,
But then it's
been
a
around for 1,000
prescribed.
years.
Like I love chess, but it's prescribed, right? You have books and books of best strategy,
Yeah.
best this. When I sit down at a tabletop for a board game, I don't necessarily want there to be this is best.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
Yeah.
As odd as
Definitely.
that sounds, like I don't love that. I don't love the fact that if I play this way today on this game, this is best and I'll win.
Yeah, I don't want a script.
Yeah,
Right.
No.
I like the adventure. I like the journey.
having
That's fun.
balance in uniqueness is very interesting, and that goes to that video of the guy talking about how games are balanced but the players are unbalanced, and you have
Yeah.
to realize that. And I think that's a cool factor for a lot of games is when they're balanced, but the balance isn't immediately obvious, which is nice. We're like what you're talking about. The balance in those games is immediately obvious. Everybody has the same utilities. But then there's games like Cthulhu Wars where it's balanced, but that's because your utilities and my utilities are different, but they both benefit us in different ways. And I think that's the stuff I like more, which is what it sounds like.
I know
you
we
guys
complain
too.
about testing, but the reality is even something like Tapestry was play tested a whole bunch, but then you release 10,000 copies, you have 40,000 new players. Their brains work different than your testers did, so they may find holes. Magic does this all the time, right? They come out with cards people find broken, then they realize they have to
everything. I mean, you
Yeah.
can even look at how many, especially in the day of online multiplayer. Look at how many video games crash on day one because they had no idea how many people were going to be playing it.
Yeah.
And then they find the people playing it essentially go, "Hey, there's a bug over here," and then look at how many video games have a patch within the first week to fix something that was found.
Well, not even with bugs. So there's a really cool documentary about the video game Rocket League, and the designer says people are doing things in this game that we never even imagined possible within the structure that we have.
Yeah.
And that's totally skill based. It's totally people going out and just messing around. And it's just incredible to, the same thing can be said with board games. They're probably a little less loose as like a board game or a video game like Rocket League in finding that. But, like how Russ plays games and he goes, I'm going to try this strategy. I don't care if it works or not, but I'm going to try this. Russ is going to try something that's way different than, whatever was intended. I'm sure when Scarecrow in Dice
that's what he was made
Masters,
for. Absolutely.
the way that Russ played that card and the way that Russ honestly transformed the meta in the entire game around that card, I think differently than anybody else would have because of the way he saw it. And it was probably very different from what the original intention of that card was. And
Well, what was funny is it was because I was playing someone that had it, and they did it. They had some weird thing they were doing. He'd just taken my guy so he could block or something. I can't remember. And I was like, oh, man, that's how he works. And so we come up with these things. It's interesting, too, with game groups, like we've talked about, because one of my favorite games of all time, top 5, I'm really bad at saying what a top game is for me now, so I say top 5.
that's fine.
In
All
Evolution,
400 of his top 5
Yeah.
games.
Exactly.
Evolution, which was probably my first really experience in a board game that was like an
That was,
epiphany.
that was like the first one that you really geeked out on.
Yeah.
Well, and it was like, wait, this is how this game works. This is absolutely amazing. We create a whole ecosystem, and what I do dictates what others can do. Having said that, I absolutely love the game. I would have a hard time arguing with someone that didn't like it, but I understand, because if the group does not play that game right,
yeah.
it's flat. Like, it's not, like, if everybody just puts all the food in the watering hole and you, like, there's nothing, you're not really doing anything. You're playing cards and eating food. That's not fun. That's not what the game is intended. But if you have the right group in there, which I find really ironic because you're building an ecosystem, but if the whole group plays like the ecosystem, that game just hits on all cylinders. It's an amazing game.
Mm-hmm.
And I have other games that I think, that has everything. I'll research. I'll be like, oh, that game is what I want. And then it's Terraforming Mars. So it's odd how that kind of works. All those things, like what you like, what you don't like.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, I was thinking about with Dice Masters, and we talked about balance for a minute, that the problem with that game is I think that the meta became what is the best combination of cards, and everybody was playing mirror matches, and aside from what WizKids was doing to destroy it, the meta became stale because
that's the unfortunate nature of competitive card games.
For sure.
At a certain point, people are going to figure out the best cards, and then they're going to put it on the internet, and then people are net decking and paying for those cards so they can win.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I'm very competitive. I have a temper at times with being competitive in athletics and other stuff. I understand that. But playing board games to always win. I understand card games maybe where you're at events. If I sit down every night to play games for just winning, man, I sure would not like a lot of my games. Like, I've never won Crusaders.
Sure.
The
Definitely.
play is amazing.
To me, that's almost a hallmark of a good game. If you finish it and you lost, and like the more you lose by, the more it shows that it's a good game. If you just get your ass handed to you and you go, I loved that. That was great. Like, that you're playing a good game. You're playing something that like has some staying power with you. That's to me one of the most accurate ways to judge a game off of one play, where you said you try not to judge a game until you got like 4 or 5 plays in. I agree with that. But one of the best green flags, I guess, for a game is if I lose, and especially if I lose in stunning fashion, and I love every minute of it, and I'm like, that was great, I want to do it again, and hopefully I'll win. And if I don't, I still get to play the game.
Right.
Then I know I've got something.
I think the other thing with that too is if you lose but know why you lost. Whereas if you lose and you're just like, what? Like what how am I 100 points behind you? Like, when you play a game like that and you just can't understand how someone beat you or why you did so poorly, you don't understand what plays. I think that's the other alongside of that. Like, having fun with a board game is very important and probably the most important part of playing board games. That's why we do them. The next part is, can you see what the strategies? I think that's why I don't like Seven Wonders as much as I don't like it, because unless you study the cards and play that game multiple times, it's really hard to see why you did poorly in that game.
Right. The comprehension can play a pretty big factor in someone's like or dislike of the game, and I'm guilty of that as well. I think it's just in human nature. But
I mean, some of the games that I found out I love after one play, I have won, but not all of them. Like Teotihuacan, loved that game, but I won. But
yeah.
Not all of them are that way.
I honestly kind of don't trust it. If I win, there's a part of me that's like going, did I enjoy the game or did I get the endorphin rush from winning?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I genuinely I question it more.
Yeah.
definitely.
So I guess we should eventually talk about my story as the evolution of a gamer.
I was glad you brought that up. I wanted to ask you once again. Yeah, what is it that you've noticed as far as your evolution as a gamer?
So I've always played games. I grew up playing card games with
Hand
my
and
family. Not hand and foot, actually. Let's see. I grew up in the Midwest, so we played a lot of euchre. We played up and down the river. Card games, you name it. Uno, Yahtzee, all of the standard ones. My grandparents are still really big into motorhome clubs, and the school I went to in elementary school was a year-round school. So I had these random times off during the year, and my parents would be like, just go hang out with your grandparents at a motorhome RV. And I loved it because all the old ladies would bake me cookies, and we would just play games all day. And so I got really into like cribbage and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I was always the friend. I played Pokemon back when it first started. I was the only one of my friends who was like, let's figure out how to actually play this. And they're like, no, let's just collect. And I'm like, it's a game. Like, let's play the game. So, I've played board games ever since I was young. And, I broke my leg when I was 16. And I remember the youth pastor at my church was really into what I would call obscure games back then. He brought a bunch of like 2-player board games over, and we played a ton of games. And that's kind of what opened my eyes to, there's more than just Monopoly and Candyland and all that kind of stuff.
And a deck of cards.
And so, but I mean, my family at get-togethers, we've always played cards and that kind of stuff. And now we play Carcassonne because a friend of ours introduced us to that. And,
Didn't you say you just bought your parents a copy of Quacks of Quedlinburg?
I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
I didn't actually pull the trigger, but I was thinking about it.
That to me, I'm like, it wouldn't even cross my mind to buy a game like, and not that that's like a heavy or complex game or anything like that, but the wording of the name is a little bit weird. There's no good allegory, you can't just be like, it's kind of like Risk, it's kind of like Sorry, it's kind of like Monopoly. Like, there's none of that. It's not at all similar to any of the traditional games that I've played.
Yeah.
So like, I would never think to unleash that on someone, maybe like one of my kids who've played it, or if someone that I know is a gamer, but like no one in my family I would even consider buying something like that. So that tells me a lot about like your parents and your background, where obviously like if it's even crossing your mind, they're legit gamers. I mean, even if they're not like super hardcore heavy gamers, they are legit gamers.
They're gamers in the sense that they play games, but my parents really get stuck in a game. Carcassonne is, so we played Wizard, which is basically a version of kind of like Spades. We played that for years and years and years, and then they got stuck on Carcassonne, and now that's all we play at Carcassonne all the time. I gave them a copy of Bunny Kingdom, and they liked it. My mom has a really hard time wanting to learn new games. Like, she just wants to be able to play.
Don't we all, man? Learning new games is the worst.
Yeah.
Knowing new games is great. Learning them is terrible.
But, she doesn't... They don't like to branch out very much. They go to Taco Tuesday every Tuesday. They go to the same Mexican restaurant every Friday. To the point,
it's a great 2-player game.
they go to the same Mexican restaurant every Friday night, to the point where the people know them by name, know their orders, and just like bring it to them at the table. And I'm sure that restaurant would call 911 if they didn't show up on a Friday night, because they'd be like, "Oh God, they must be dead. Like, where are they?" So getting them out of the routine is something that's, I like to play all kinds of board games. And so getting them to try different things like Sushi Go or King of Tokyo, Bonanza is a game that we play a lot, that I can convince them to play, because it's pretty straightforward. And what you do, the strategy is where it gets complex. So Quacks, the reason I was singing Quacks is because it's pretty straightforward. You pull the things out of the bag and you go, "Nah, I think I'm good."
What a genius game that game is.
It really is.
Just thinking about it,
so
like,
good.
It's so different than anything else when you were talking about like what do you relate it to, but it's like so simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Well,
it's honestly it's Farkle. Have you ever played Farkle? It's the basic Farkle dice game. Like, do I keep going or do I bank my score? Do I keep going,
but
bank my score?
It teaches engine builder so well, I noticed the other day, because it's like, if I go pumpkins and toadstools, they help each other.
It's
like
pretty
helps
simple.
And there's not tons to choose from.
Yeah.
There's like, 5, 6, 7 colors.
It's very simple associations.
Yeah.
And so it's really easy. That's honestly like Bunny Kingdom. If you look at Bunny Kingdom, look at the back of the box of Bunny Kingdom, it looks like a really complex game, but it's actually really simple. You draft a card, you put your bunny on the square that it says. And that's, there's a few other complexities to that, but that's the base of the game. And then it's simple multiplication, like I score off of this. So, evolving as a gamer, I've known forever that I love playing board games. I'm super stoked to have a group like you guys because I can justify my purchases of my board games now.
Right?
Because I've always wanted the giant board game collection, but it's like, will I ever actually get to play these? And now I do. Me and Ken play a lot of 2-player games together. So, with significant others, that was always a focus. Was like, I live so far away from people that like to play board games. At least maybe I can play a 2-player game. So I've built a decent collection of 2-player games. And now that I have Ken to play 2-player games with pretty regularly, it's nice to actually get those to the table more often and actually really explore them. But yeah, I mean, like having a game group like this that I know I'm the least consistent player and it's still nice to know that it's here and that I can come play games with you guys and that kind of stuff when I get the chance.
To give yourself a little credit, though, you're not flaky. You're just busy as hell, man.
I'm very busy and have a very odd work-life schedule, and I've kind of put my foot down at work and said, no, I have to have a social life this winter. I'm not going to deal with this
Good.
winter. So
See, that's kind of funny because gaming's been that for me with the social life and the right about the time I started getting into games, not long, I moved from working an hour away as a high school athletic director to working from home. So, like, I had, oddly enough, like all this time because I wasn't commuting and I was like on a normal 9-to-5 schedule, and I wasn't going to school, which I had done for a decade. My kids were all getting a little older, so they didn't want to just hang out with Dad. So it kind of slipped into that time. Now I think, what would I do with all this time if I wasn't gaming?
See, and that's like, for me, it's not too far off of that, but where with me, it wasn't like that I had kids or that I was working really far away. It was, I essentially lived the same structure of I had the same job I do and all of that, but I was like living with friends and parties on the weekends and bar hopping and then like I met my now wife around the same time that I was, and her interest in games helped fuel my interest in games. Like all I needed was someone to play with, and with that I started playing more games, started buying more games, and then like with Dice Masters, playing games and meeting people through that, it has become like this is like 90% of my social life.
Yeah.
I still like every now and then hang out with guys from work. I still like talk to like old friends from high school and from the old days of like going to house parties and bar hopping and stuff. But like a lot of them are kind of mellowing out and doing their own thing. And the ones that aren't, it's like, I don't want to do that. Like if ever you want to chill out and just have a mellow night and just, be cool, like let's just hang out and play some board games. And if you don't want to do that, like, do you be happy? I'm for it. I'm not terribly interested in it. And so like board gaming is it's the cornerstone of my social life.
I remember my first time going to a board game shop to go to a board game night with some friends. And man, when we did that for the first time, I was like, holy cow. I wish this was like something that was more reasonable, because the board game shop was like 45 minutes away and that kind of stuff.
Live in Utah.
And now I live in Utah. And when I moved to Utah and I realized there were so many game stores, I actually I moved pretty close to Game Night Games when I first moved here, and I remember going into that store and being like, I'm home. This is it. This is where I'm going to be. And the amount of money and time I've spent at that store alone, has been pretty high since I've moved to Utah. And I love it. And then, Game Night Games is where I got into Dice Masters. Is where people invited me to play in the tournaments. And then I met you guys. And
that was the whole weird thing for me, the whole tournaments. Like, I went to buy product, and it was because I opened something. It was kind of like, and they had events, and I was like, what? I remember the first time I went, I took a little watch box that held my whole collection.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, that would have been my whole board game collection at the time. Except for my upstairs closet.
I was
I
going
don't
to
really
say, you had to have had
I have a
some
whole
of the
closet
staples.
upstairs that we don't really consider part of the game. So when we see all my collection downstairs, that doesn't include all the family stuff upstairs.
Right.
The ones that I'm embarrassed that we own.
Yeah, I kind of do the same thing. I'm like, there's only so much real estate on
Yeah.
these shelves, and sorry, but like the Monopoly that's missing half of the $5 bills is not going in the
Yeah.
shelf.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and then you go to those stores and you find out, oh, wait, they have board game meetups?
Yeah.
They have events for board games. Like you can get or win new little ads to your.
Mm-hmm.
So, like that opened up a whole new world, and I think we are pretty lucky. The amount of stores that we have here is,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
is pretty crazy.
I think I remember in high school we had one friend. His name was Camille. He was like 2 years older than all of us. But we would play. We started off all playing street hockey together, and then somehow it turned into a weekly standing Risk day. We would play Risk once a week, and to the point where we had our own house rules.
I love Risk.
Like we had our own. You talk about it all the time, and I'm like, dang it, Russ, let's play Risk sometime. And I remember that, and like that also helped kind of formalize this, like, oh, like we can get together and do something that's, you know, mentally productive and you know, and I love it.
I mean, when people ask what to do, and I know what drives my wife crazy when we're looking at gifts or what to do, get together with friends, like play games, buy games. She's like, you're obsessed. I'm like, well, why wouldn't you give a gift as a game, whether they're gamers or not? You know, it can be apples to apples or something. It's an easy gift that people will use, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Socially, it gets you away from everybody just saying, what do we do? And it opens up new doors. So it's just,
Yeah.
I know.
I mean,
I'm
heck,
obsessed,
even at the drinking parties that we used to host in my raft guiding days, like we would play some form of drinking game every time. Like
Yeah.
we
There was a
wouldn't
lot of
just
drinking games.
we wouldn't just stand there and drink and talk. Like we would play some game that would get us messed up and multiple times naked in the kitchen of some house. But you know, like it's like,
rafting guides, that's a shock.
yeah. So you made the rule. You have to deal with it now. So, yeah, I mean, games, even video games and like playing, you don't know Jack on the PlayStation or whatever. Like, it's such a social activity, and it's a great one to get people engaged with each other. And I think that's like such a
Definitely.
downplayed
So
aspect
one thing
of
I
it.
think is funny, you guys will probably laugh at this too, is in my younger years, say before 30 maybe, my wife and my two oldest kids couldn't get me to play games. Like they wanted to play all the time. So now the tables have turned, but I was so worn out from work.
Yeah.
Like I was exhausted. I didn't want to. I mean, outside of just playing games, gaming has taught me a lot about balance of life and work and that kind of stuff. Now we've had to go buy 13 Dead End Drive again, a game they used to want to play with me when we were kids. And so the tables have turned. My wife used to want to play cards. Now I want to play. And so she has her games, she calls them, and my games, and she's adopted some of my games to her games, which is always good.
Yeah. I've found like Chazen is awesome. He is so good at spending the entire afternoon going, I'm bored, I don't know what to do, I'm bored. And then about an hour before it's like, all right, you're gonna need to go to bed, he goes,
Can we play a game?
Could we play like Cthulhu Wars? Could we play the heaviest game that I know how to play? Could we play a game that's going to be a 3-hour time commitment? Could we do that? And it's like, no. Should have thought of that the first time you said you were bored. You know, the kids are good at that.
They are.
It's interesting that you said, you know, like you used to be mentally exhausted and that kind of stuff. And like, I think about that. That actually made me think of last weekend playing games with Ken. Because we started at like 2 and played until almost midnight. And we played heavy games. Every game was a heavy game.
Except Carcassonne.
to you it's not very heavy. to me, counting all the tiles that are on the table, knowing which ones are still in the bag, it becomes more heavy.
Those nights are wearing.
Yeah, and I went home and I was exhausted, and I was like, I don't feel like today was my one day off. I don't feel like I took the day off. Like, that was because I drive city buses for work, and driving a city bus is honestly the easiest job I've ever had in my life. And so I'm bored to tears when I work because it's so easy. And then, like, my day off, I go and spend playing Brass and Twilight and Struggle and some other stuff with Ken, and it's just like my brain hurt after that day.
See, and for me, like, I mean, board games provide a structure for social interactivity because I am like you see me in the street, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to walk up and start a conversation with you, even if there's something that, like, I look at you and I go, that person has a nice hat. They don't care about my opinion. I'm going to leave them alone. I like to be left alone. I'm going to default to they probably want to be left alone also. Like, I just don't like bugging people. I'm not super into being bugged by people. So, like, for me, board games serve really well to get over the initial hump. Like, okay, we've agreed to engage with each other on this level. So there's at least that. Now we're stuck at the table for 20 minutes, an hour, 10 hours. And there's going to be more interaction than just the game. But the game is that framework that allows me to start a conversation. And now, especially with our group where I am extremely comfortable, and I will say basically anything that crosses my mind, especially if I think it's funny. Now, as we get new people, it's like, you are a victim. You will be subjected to all the crazy shit that goes around in my head. These guys are all used to it, but strap in, like
it's kind of funny. A thought that just popped in my head too is like you use board gamings to become more social. I use board gamings to be around people, but being around people, I love interacting with people. I get fed off that. I talk to everybody that gets on my bus and that kind of stuff.
I'm more in the Ken boat.
So you guys use it to, like, gain more interaction. I sometimes use board games to be around people and have an excuse to be around people, but not really, like, open up and have a conversation. Because you can sit
and focus on something.
Yeah,
else.
You can sit and be in the company of other people, which is nice, but you don't,
unless you're trying to stab someone from chaos in the old world.
And
see, that was probably one of those days I needed to just play the game and not interact with people.
See, that almost fits perfectly with how you said that, like, spending a day of playing Twilight Struggle and Brass and whatnot, like, that was mentally exhausting for you. I have realized that I don't relax. That's not a thing that I do. I don't. I mean, like, I'm mellow, but I don't really chill. And the way that I relax, the way that I clear my mind from, all the day-to-day shit, is I seek out different stress. And I know I've talked about that on the podcast before, but even my wife is like, she's like, you will work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week for a month straight. You'll sleep 4 or 5 hours a night and you're fine. And when you get a chance to just relax, the first thing you want to do is something else. You don't want to sit down. You don't want to take a nap. You don't want to sleep in. You want to just do a different thing and find a different challenge. And that's the way that I relax. I have a hard time sitting there and watching TV. I need to be engaged with something. I don't just want to chill. Like, the idea of, like, just laying in bed, like, there's sort of an appeal, but I know that, like, I'm going to be grabbing my phone. Basically, I'm doing the same thing I'd be doing on the couch. It's not that I'm relaxing. I need to be doing something. So for me, playing a bunch of deep, heavy games, it recharges me.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool, I'm good.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
that took up such a mental load that I absolutely was not thinking about, like, work scheduling, deadlines, the crews that I'm in charge of, any of the work shit. It can't be there. There's not room while I'm playing Brass. Right. So it totally refreshes me.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the mentally exhausting, it's more like a good workout than like, oh, I'm tired after a long day. It's like, oh, I'm exhausted, but like my brain feels.
Yeah, see, and for me, it's like, all right, I'm amped up, I'm ready to go again. Like it's not at all like there's no. I mean, like in the moment, I'm like, whew, this is taxing. This is a brain burner. But as soon as it's done, I'm like, that felt great. Let's do it again. You know?
It's really cool, kind of to go back to Russ's point earlier, and I know me and Ken have talked about this too, of like, there's 10 or 12 of us in this game group that we're all so different, and especially like I lead a completely different life than most everybody, work wise and whatnot. The fact that we can all find this like shared medium and it all fuels us in different ways, and like it just shows how versatile board gaming is and how awesome of a thing it is. And even in non-gamers, you can usually find at least something that they enjoy to play. And it's, I don't know, board games awesome.
Yeah, I'm thinking back, psychologically speaking, I probably really enjoyed buying games because I didn't get a lot of, like, I got toys when I was a kid. I don't want to make it sound like I didn't have things, but my parents didn't have
I'm similar. I
the
like
most money.
I like buying stuff, and I know that a part of it is because I grew up poor.
Yeah. Well, I love having toys. Like, sure, I love the strategy, most important in a game like Death May Die, but I'd be lying if I said the toy part of it, like the figures and stuff, is amazing.
Absolutely.
Like I like having my toys.
I a while ago, I openly accepted the fact that when I am working a lot of hours and I don't have time to play games, I engage with the hobby by buying them.
Yeah.
That's, and that's it's a 5-minute thing that I buy the game and the purchase, there's a 5-minute, I purchased it and then it's over versus the 5 hours of playing it. So
I mean, unless you think about the 5 hours that you read about the game and watch videos and that kind of stuff.
I mean, there's more to it, but that's how I engage. I'm always looking at board game media and listening to podcasts and reading stuff and watching videos and all of that shit. But the way that I engage when I don't have time to physically engage with the thing is to buy the game, and then when I can, open them up, organize them, look at them, touch them, put them on the shelf, and then wave goodbye and go back to work.
Where do you see your future of gaming?
For me, and I wanted to throw back to the last points that you guys were making as well. For me, I've felt like I've evolved in a social way more than I thought that I would. I mean, I'm a really introverted person, and I know Kenneth's mentioned that he is as well, but I've had, anxiety problems where I just don't go out, and even I've had a couple nights where I'm not coming to game night because I've got issues with that. And it's one of those things that, like I said, I've evolved and blossomed socially, and I am super grateful for that. And this podcast is another way for me to interact and kind of continue to unfold and become more social. And I mean, like a couple of weeks ago, right before Halloween, I was at Target and I started bugging complete strangers who were very loudly complaining about not knowing what to buy in the game aisle.
Absolutely not ever would I do that.
See, and
I would have thought never, but I have done that.
I didn't think I was going to either. And before I knew it, my mouth was open and I was talking to these people. And I was like, what in the hell? Who is this guy? This is not me. And I went to walk away after making a couple of suggestions. And they ended up following me and tracking me down in the movies and asking me more questions about other games that they'd picked up. And
I've done the like someone holding 2 games only at a game store, not at Target, but like at a game store, someone like holding 2 games in their hand, going, "Well, we can only pick one." I go, "Hey, that one's great," and like that's all I'm willing to throw out there. Like if I'm in an especially sociable mood, and they go, "Well, why?" I might try and give them a rundown, but it's brief. I don't like. I hear you guys talk about it, and I'm like, oh, that unsettles me.
Yeah,
just the idea of that.
To think about doing it, it makes me feel nervous. But then, when I'm faced with it, or if all of a sudden spontaneously I'm, yelling something at these complete strangers about how awesome this game is, it's caught me off guard completely. But I want to continue to evolve in a social way. I'm learning more enough about what I want to play because the podcast has given me a lot of reason to get to play these games.
And it gives you a forum to think, it gives you a forum to think critically about not just the games, but about how you interact with them and yourself regarding them.
Definitely.
And really, I'm curious about what have been some of the biggest changes that you've seen in yourself, where you are like the last one or the most recent one to kind of get into a more regular and heavier group with us.
Yeah.
And I know that you've said that you feel like you missed out on stuff, you feel like you're behind and all of that shit. Like, how is that changing? Because I feel like out of all of us in this room, you're probably the one who is most going through the process of evolution and finding yourself as a gamer.
Definitely. I feel like the level of acceptance has helped me want to continue to come. And, even there's been a couple nights where I've had anxiety and felt like, I better not, go make a problem for the other guys at game night. I don't want to, become some sort of like distraction. And I've, in those moments, sometimes I find myself halfway there before I realize, oh shit, I'm on my way. I guess I really needed to do this. And I've not once regretted coming and playing with you guys. It's helped in a lot of different ways for me to break out of my shell, for me to learn a bunch of these things that I've wanted to learn, game-wise, and things that I wasn't expecting to learn about myself. But, not to get all sentimental, but I am immensely grateful for our game group and you guys specifically. It's been awesome getting to know you more and getting to know myself unexpectedly in a lot of different ways too, because of your guys' positive influence there.
Yeah, for sure. I know that it's helped me like to be more measured when I'm irritated. Like something goes wrong, especially like playing competitive games like at stores and stuff. Like, I can absolutely be a big enough and intimidating enough presence to like ruin the the stereotypical 95-pound nerd wearing glasses. I can really mess up his night without thinking about it, just by the nature of my personality. And I try to not do that. I know I have done that, and I've felt like an asshole when I've been like, that was bullshit, and I'm mad. And it's like I want to pull them aside and be like, it wasn't you. It was the game. I'm not mad at you. Like you were here for the same reason that I was here. I was here to beat you. You were here to beat me, and you did it and I didn't. That's not a fault. That's not a problem. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm not upset at you. I'm upset that I lost. And it's such an ancillary thing that it has anything to do with you. It's pure coincidence.
Yeah.
And like I've learned to temper that a lot better. And it also helps that I don't really go to stores, spend money, and play competitive games. I'm mostly playing games at my house or at Russ's house, and they're fun board games, and I don't care if I win.
Yeah.
I want to win, but that's not why I'm there, per se.
Definitely. Well, what about you, Russ? Why don't you talk about something that you feel you've evolved with?
Just personality, in the sense that I'm a little bit more mellow. I enjoy, like I mentioned that I'm a wrestling coach. I'm very competitive. Though I'm not worried about winning the games, the idea of competing regularly in games satisfies a niche for me.
Yeah.
So whether it's just playing something like we did last night, the playing, even though I'm not worried about winning, it's the same when I coach. Like, teaching the kids, it's not about winning, it's about the whole process, enjoying the competition. And if you want to get better, sometimes you have to lose to get better. So I approach games the same way, but some of those guys, like, to some extent, I lead two different lives in that way, because, I'm a coach and athletics at this point, and then that's not always the same in the gaming hobby. And I try really hard to overlap them. I'm always trying to talk to the kids about games. They like to make fun.
You have never once invited me to wrestle. Don't say that you're trying to overlap them.
But
that'd be a fun game night.
I'm always telling the kids, about either the podcast or games, and they ingest, and then we'll always start talking. Like D&D is really popular in high school.
Mm-hmm.
We have a trip coming up to Vegas, so I've told them I could do a one-shot DM as we go, or
When are you going?
ask what games this weekend.
Oh, okay.
I'm not super excited. I mean, yeah, but
If you find time, stop at Meepleville. It's a really cool game store right off the strip.
if I'm not on the bus, I will.
Cool.
So, but I was asking kids what games they were. One of them said, "I like Cover Your Assets," so I was like, "Oh, Cover Your Kingdom, it's coming with us." So,
Nice.
but
Kinda
just
can't wait
that
to
whole
play it.
idea of like, gaming gives me everything from the social to the competitive, which is what Dice Masters really did at first, because too old and decrepit to compete in tournaments. So it was like this, like, ooh, I can compete against people at things. Man, that really scratched that itch.
Yeah.
Until I got too competitive, and then it was like, I should probably just chill. So,
Well, what about you, Alex?
My future in gaming, I mean, I hope it's always part of my life for two reasons. One, because I love playing games, and two, because I've invested quite a bit financially into games.
I'm always wondering, like, what's it going to be like when this collection has to get either sold, moved, or I pass on and people have to deal with it? 'Cause there's a lot.
Won't be my problem. I'll be dead.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I think my current girlfriend, she plays games. She doesn't love games, but she plays them more to make me happy than anything. And
Well, hopefully she
hopefully.
finds one like Wingspan with
Yeah.
Katie, and
That's
and
opened up
then
doors because
then it
Quacks is
makes
on
her
that,
happy.
getting to that level already where it's
for
like,
sure.
hey,
And
you want to play a game? You want to play Quacks? Sure, I'm down.
there are
So
definitely games that are better for her than others, and she's a pretty competitive person, so I think teaching her new games is hard.
That is my
Because
life in
she-
a nutshell.
Yeah, she doesn't like to lose, and so when she plays a game for the first time, she's like, well, you know all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but I've played Carcassonne 1,000 times. And, like, that's not an exaggeration. Like, I've played 1,000 times. Of course I'm going to be better at you just inherently. Like, I know
Why you
that...
gotta be so rude?
like,
Jeez.
like...
Maybe she's a savant. Maybe she
you
picked
know.
it up all the way.
But, like, that's the
I'm just
thing is, trying to teach new people how to play games and how to enjoy
I find it
the
hard
journey.
to teach people that are really competitive.
Because they don't... The
Too much of their joy is going
Yeah.
to be based on winning,
And not the
that's
journey,
something that
yeah.
I have a hard time. I actively, like I said, I don't trust my first opinion as much if I win a game as I do if I lose it. So like having such a completely different philosophy when approaching the game, it gets harder, and it's one of those things that's like just play and. Going with the like the co-ops and stuff like that, kind of breaking down that competitive, I need to win edge, and then you can reintroduce them to the more competitive games and be on more of a like, let's just do the thing. It's fun. Like the fun is the game. Winning is the goal, but the fun is in the game.
Yeah. So I have a funny story to tell real quick. I bought Jepper for us to play, me and her, and you play over 3 rounds. It's a best of 3. I won the first round because I kind of surprised her by ending the round before she was ready.
You cheated.
No, I didn't.
You probably
cheat.
didn't read a rule out loud.
I definitely read the rule out loud.
maybe
I'm not
not.
Jared. I definitely read this rule out loud. She didn't remember it. The next 2 rounds were so cutthroat, and she destroyed me. Like once she because it just clicked for her on the second and third round, and I was just like,
Did she
I don't-
like it?
she said she enjoyed the game afterwards, and but the first after the first of the 3 rounds, she was like visibly angry at me. And I was like, oh god, this sucks. And then the next round, she just wiped my trash, and I was like, oh well, I think you like this game now.
That's awesome.
But, yeah.
Well, I'm really interested to revisit this topic in like a year and see where my tastes line up and see where I feel like I may have evolved. I think that'd be an interesting thing to.
It seems like a fitting
revisit.
topic for the end of the year. You know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Right?
Like who are you now?
It is
kind of
different to
thing.
go back to games that you thought you didn't like and play them again and be like, oh, now I get this game. I like it more.
Yeah,
Seeing on the other side of that too, like last week you guys talked about Western Legends being a bit of a Western letdown, and I didn't say much at the time because I was sitting there just soaking in the conversation and realizing that I felt very much the same as both of you. You know, that game just didn't have a real wow factor either. I felt like it got kind of close at times, but it just didn't ever get over that hump, and I couldn't really put my finger on it until we recorded last week, and I had things that I wanted to root for within the game, especially those minis. And, you know, the poker action setup thing. I thought that was cool, at least on the outside looking in, but they just didn't quite make an impact that I felt that they should have when I was playing the game.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's one of those evolutions of, you know, even just within a game specifically itself that I felt like, you know, it's something that we're always going through. And interesting. I you know, and on that note, I still want a great Western themed game with some awesome minis.
yeah, that'd be cool.
I think the last thing we should touch on is kind of the evolution of our game group, and I remember when we first all started playing, it was Ameritrash. Like we all played Ameritrash, and I had more exposure to Euro games at that point than Ameritrash, and
Which
but now
ones
it's,
did we start with as a group?
man, I don't even
Dice Masters.
Dice Masters obviously, but then I mean
I want to say Blood Rage was an early one.
mhm.
The others wasn't too terribly far behind it.
Yeah.
Zombie Side wasn't too terribly far behind that. But yeah, there was quite a bit of Eurotrash. There was drafting.
Yeah. Well, we played a lot of Evolution. We honestly we have a problem within our group that we love to buy new games.
Absolutely.
Like our replayability, or replay of games. That's my goal for next year. Because I love playing new games. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
that's-
also hate playing new games because we can 3, 4, 5 games that we know we love, or one game that we don't know about, and then another one. If
we should
we're
get
not
one of
too
those
long.
like 10x10
Yeah.
challenge boards for the group.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Play 10 games 10 times in a year.
that's definitely like an area that I am like in the process of evolving there. Like I didn't go after any of the Black Friday sales. 'Cause there wasn't anything that I was looking for. I'm at a point where I still really like Kickstarter, although I'm tapering off of that too. I mean, like that Dawn of Madness game 6 months ago, it would be all in and I would just go for it. But now it's like, okay, I'm starting to actually have some of that time that I kept telling myself I'd get to all these games when I had the time and I was buying them. I'm getting to have that time now, and it's like, okay, I've got all these games that aren't played. I should be I shouldn't buy a game just to buy a game. And I personally have decided I'm not going to buy a game just because it's on sale.
Yep.
If it's a game that I'm not looking for, it needs to be a game that I was already interested in, like with the Black Friday thing. The only game that I almost bought on a Black Friday sale was Alien Artifacts, and it's because I was thinking it was Alien Frontiers. I talked to Alex, and he was like, no, that's Alien Frontiers. And I was like, oh, cool, then I'm not going. I'm like, no. Like, yes, it's still like an amazing deal. It's still $60 worth
I
of
was
this
gonna say,
game
we
for like
even-
$16, but I'm good. I don't need
I
it.
passed up a lot at Paragon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a couple decent things.
There were games that I looked at for a long time, and I was like, "Oh, I'm okay."
Dude, me and
I got my brother to buy one for my nephew, the
Me and-
Archmage.
me and
Or I
my
would've bought
wife-
that one.
we drove around. We hit like a few pet stores because she was looking for. She had some
It's
deals.
been a week. Has she
that-
got a new pet?
No, actually, we took back the ferret that we got on Black Friday because it was being very aggressive to the other ferret.
It was a jerk.
Yeah, she was mean. But we were like going around to different stores, and I could have, it wouldn't have been far out of the way of what we were doing. I could have hit 5 stores plus because we were all over the valley, and she would have been like, yeah, sure. Like, you're joining me to do my Black Friday stuff. I'll join you to do your Black Friday stuff. And it would have been totally fine. And I was just like, she's like, I know that you were saying that the boys got some good deals at Paragon. Do you want to go down there? I was like, I'm not in the market for anything. I'm fine. I don't need anything. You know?
See, and part of that for me, I'm in the same boat, is though I have the ones on my list that I want.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's like, every new game I buy, as great as they are, it's pushing back some of these titles I have not played in a while.
Yeah.
I haven't played Trains. I haven't played Evolution. Like a bunch of games that I know I love, but every time I buy games, like I want to play those, and it's just hard to get everything in.
Dude, it genuinely blew me away yesterday that I got a game delivered from Amazon, and it was played like 3 hours later. Like, it was done being played. We were putting it away like within 3 hours of me touching it for the first time. Like, that was amazing.
That's your record.
That was Twilight Struggle. I went
Yeah.
and picked it up from the lady who drove over to your house and played it.
Yeah, that I don't remember the last time that was able to happen. I mean, there's definitely been, I buy it on, a Thursday and it ends up being played on Friday or something like that. But to get a game and play it that day, that so rarely happens for me.
We talked about this in the Shelf of Shame episode, but it always makes me laugh thinking back to when I'd be like, how could you ever have a game on your shelf you haven't played? That's so crazy.
Yeah.
It's still in shrink. What, are you nuts?
Yeah.
And now I have
That's the evolution of a gamer.
Yeah, that was an exciting thing for me with Ecos last night, was just doing that so fast. It was like, all right.
I do think kind of as a group we're getting to the point where we're caught up in our old backlog of wanting to purchase the games, and now we're all kind of slowing down because we're like, oh, we've already found most of the ones that we want. It's just the new ones coming out now, so we've kind of caught up, and that's why the purchasing is maybe slowing down a little bit, and hopefully the playing will go up.
We have our group has dumped in its fair share into the hobby in the last
I was just about to say, I bet just in this room we've got over 600 games between the 4 of us, and there's a little bit of overlap, but I think we all have unique enough taste that there's not as much as we might imagine right off the bat.
And Kevin to that, and
Oh my goodness!
Our group has dumped probably a staggering amount of money into the hobby in the last.
Well,
2-3 years.
I'm extremely grateful for that, being that I'm in the hobby career. So
Yeah.
just keep doing it. It keeps me busy at work.
But it's provided me painting,
Right,
and so much else that.
More evolution as an artist that I thought, I never expected it to happen to. So it's been awesome. I'm super grateful for it.
Yeah, I guess painting. Even I didn't even think about painting. Like, that's not. I've never really been artistic, but I've gotten pretty into painting the minis, and that's a big part of it too. And it's a fun, different outlet, and it's fun to show them off and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's therapy for me. I love just getting lost in a painting, and then when you get to throw it on the table, it's even more fun. Mm-hmm. Feeds those positive things in your brain.
Well, what's crazy is with this evolution, I could easily keep talking. We've already been talking like 2.5 hours of games. So,
right.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
I
let's
could do that
evolve
all the time.
to the next episode. But before we do that, thanks again for listening. Please rate and review the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or whatever podcatcher that you use. And if you've got a suggestion for an episode topic or a Talk 5, send it to thelategamepodcast@gmail.com, or just send us a message on our website or social media. You can find us at thelategamepodcast.com and at The Late Game Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, as well as YouTube. Thanks again for staying up with The Late Game. Are we ready?
We can't use sign language on the podcast.
We can. It's not going to be very good.
Probably not the best content.
Try it. We'll see.